Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the farmers, those who have parents who are farmers, those who have friends who are farmers. Welcome to all of you being here, the farmers, the members of the Route to Food initiative, and our partners, the representatives from the media. Welcome to the policymaker and government officials. Thank you for the academics and researchers. And welcome to all civil society organizations, representative of civil society organizations who are here. And hello to those who follow us on online. Then this event is streamed. So thank you for being there. It's a pleasure to welcome you here today and to celebrate the launch of the Farmers Resource Guide. The Farmers Resource Guide, which has the subtitle, as you can see on the screens, Achieving Food Production Without Toxic Pesticides. At the Route to Food initiative and the Heinrich Böll Foundation, we believe that farming lies at the heart of the Kenyan economy and is essential for the well-being of our people. I just need to get the mic ready, sorry. Despite the important role that agriculture plays, and we all know how relevant and important it is, not only for the food production, but for the economy, we continue to face the growing challenge of highly hazardous ingredients of pesticides. We know they are highly hazardous to human health, and we know they are highly hazardous to the environment and biodiversity. These pesticides endanger, as I said, endanger the human health, but they also endanger the pollinators, which so many farmers being among us here, and those who know about farming know what an important role pollinators play in agriculture, and that's among the reasons why we do this work, and we advocate for the reduction of highly hazardous pesticides and ingredients of pesticides. We have worked on that, as most of you know, I think, for quite some time. Last year, we published the report Toxic Business, Highly Hazardous Pesticides in Kenya, which shed light on the reliance of those toxic chemicals. And I like to highlight here again, we put it out many times to the media, that 76% of the pesticides that are being used in Kenya contain at least one or more highly hazardous ingredient. So 76% of the pesticides that are used in the country. So in the past years, we highlighted a lot the hazards and the risks. We pointed out to the problems, and we advocated to a policy change, and we advocated to a reduction of the registration of those highly hazardous ingredients to be used in pesticides and therefore in farming. What we want to do today is also to talk about alternatives. There are solutions. There are not only problems, there are solutions. Many of you here know about the solutions. So the Farmer's Guide talks about them in detail. The guide, as you will see, has a lot of graphics and a lot of information that give practical solutions. So that is why we're here today. The Farmer's Guide, or the solutions of the Farmer's Guide, I should say, are grounded in agroecology. By talking about pesticides and the risks and negative effects of highly hazardous pesticides, we also talk about alternatives to it, which is agroecology, and the guide will show techniques that improve actually soil health, how to manage pest control, and how to focus on prevention and building resilience. Our journey has always been about more than just talking about this. It is also about empowering farmers with the knowledge and resources they need to thrive without relying on those highly hazardous chemicals. The Root to Food initiative, in collaboration with many partners, and thank you our partners for being here today, believes in a future where agriculture succeeds without the use of those toxic pesticides, where farmers can grow healthy and nutritious food while safeguarding their health, the health of the consumers, and the environment. We are also encouraged by the recent withdrawal of 8 highly hazardous pesticides by the Pest Control and Product Board, the regulating authority, which will come into effect end of this month, on December 31st. This was announced in a circular almost a year and a half ago, I think in July 23, but the withdrawal will happen by the end of this month. We think it is an important step, and among those ingredients that will actually be withdrawn are 2 of the most significant. There are chloriferous and one with an even more complicated name, chlorothalonil. I hope I pronounce it correctly. These names are not easy for everybody to recall correctly. Those chemicals have long posed serious risks being used in agricultural production, not only food production, but also other crops, like for example flowers and also coffee, which is a main product for export. But their withdrawal remarks a critical step forward. This milestone marks a significant moment for all those advocating for the transition to safer and more sustainable farming practices. In 2021, the Root to Food initiative submitted a list of 30 highly hazardous ingredients to be withdrawn, and today we celebrate this important success. So 5 of the 8 ingredients that will be withdrawn by the end of the month by the PCBB were mentioned in the report that the Root to Food initiative and the partner organizations submitted to PCBB. And I believe my colleague will talk about that fact later a little bit more and with more detail. The guide, the Farmer's Resource Guide, is a tool to support that ongoing work, providing farmers with the practical means to move beyond harmful pesticides. It builds on the collective effort that we have made over the years, and we are excited to see its impact across Kenya's farming communities. As we continue to make this stride in creating a safer and more sustainable agricultural future, we call on all stakeholders, including the farmers, of course, the policymakers, civil society organizations, and our partners, and leaders of the industry, the agricultural chemical industry, to work together and to ensure that the health of the citizens of this country and the environment remains a top priority. Now, I would really like to thank you all, and to thank especially my colleagues who are here, and our friends and our partners who helped bringing this Farmer's Resource Guide about. It was a lot of work. There were many meetings. There was a lot of back and forth. But here it is now. So thank you all to my colleagues Harun Waroui, Christine Gadwiri. Where's Christine? She is over there. She is. Silke Bollmore, who will speak later. Fiber Combo, who worked tirelessly on communications and bringing on the media, and on our designer Michael, who put a lot of relentless work in the graphics and the design of the report, and last not least, our colleague Mercy, who basically worked on all the steps to prepare this event. I would also like to thank the farmers who were contributing to the guide. We had many meetings, some meetings at our office, a lengthy and very in-depth discussion. And I also like to thank our good friend and our partner who worked with us for quite some time, Sylvia Curia, who, yes, is also here. And their expertise, your expertise, Sylvia, Silke, Harun, and all those who participated, was invaluable in validating and refining the guide and to ensure it meets the practical needs of farmers today. Thank you all for being here today. And as a foundation and the Root to Food initiative, we look forward to working together with you, and we look forward towards production of safe, healthy, and nutritional food. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for those opening remarks.
Right.
Round of applause, please, as he takes the stage. Well, we can see he gave thanks to all those who were involved in writing the book, but you forgot yourself. So please, let's give him a round of applause for the amazing work that Henrik Ball is doing. Really, really appreciative of your work. Just a reminder, our online audience, we see you, we feel you. Keep all those questions coming. We'll be reading your questions and comments as we move forward. And remember, we're also active online. Tafadhali, if you're on Twitter, if you are on Instagram, if you're on LinkedIn, share those pictures with the people. If in case you're learning something, let them know what you're learning so that we don't keep all this knowledge to ourselves. So in the next speaker who is coming, I want to introduce Dr. Harun Waroui, who is the lead program coordinator for agroecology at HBS. So sort of just give us a brief of how this journey has shaped up since they started this particular book. So, Mr. Dr. Harun.
I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you again to this forum, whereby we'll be launching our Farmer's Guide. And once again, appreciate your coming and the support that we have received from you all the way. Allow me to reiterate what Mr. Joachim has said, that it has been a long journey as the Root to Food initiative through the foundation, whereby we have been fighting and advocating for the withdrawal of highly hazardous pesticide and also having safe food on our table. And we have not been known of giving solutions. We have been known of advocacy. We have been known of campaigning against the toxic pesticides. So I would like to take you a brief moment to take you through the journey that we have walked with you colleagues, which we truly, truly appreciate. And start by saying that this campaign we started in 2019. It has been quite a long journey, whereby as an initiative, we were able to launch our first document, which was a white paper. And this white paper was able to flag out some key issues and some harm points that we reiterated to ourselves, and we made us be aware of what we are doing to ourselves and to our environment. Out of this white paper, we were able to decode that that 3% of active ingredients in the pesticides that we use here in Kenya have been banned in the EU. And these have got various types of concerns that we take into cognizance, but not to mention them, we have quite a number indeed. Issues of being mutagenic, carcinogenic, endocrine disruptors, and others. And also, like mentioned by Joachim, they have an impact to our pollinators and thus to our environment. Based on this and being informed by this work, we were able to do some petition in 2019 through our National Assembly. And the focus was to remove the HHPs from our market. We got a lot of support from the Assembly held committee, whereby there was a recommendation to the PCPB to take immediate action against the HHPs. That did not stop us from our rigorous work, whereby we were able to proceed with a scientific report that was highly mentioned or referred to by Joachim. And in July 2021, there was a request for the PCPB to withdraw 30 active ingredients, which were mentioned, and we're very glad that 5 of those active ingredients that I know my colleague Silke will delve in are the ones that are going to be withdrawn by end of this year. So by 31st of December, we are going to have those active ingredients withdrawn. And these, like I mentioned, were part of the dossier, the scientific report that was presented to PCPB. And very important is that this has formed basis for our work that we have continued doing at HBS through the Root to Food Initiative. And very important was the release of the pesticide atlas that was in 2022. And the atlas showed that we have got 310 pesticide products which are widely applied in this country. Can you imagine these constitute about 3,000 tons? And these are being used also to a wide array of crops. And very important, through this atlas, we were able to pick out that 63% of these pesticides are highly hazardous. And very important, and this has resonated with our media, and sometimes it is quoted, in fact, even people not knowing the source. We are quite proud that you have really picked it up, whereby we know that 44% of our pesticides in Kenya have been banned in the EU. Just to mention a few is that some of the pathways we are using these documents, like we have mentioned earlier, is to enhance our public awareness on the toxicity that is in these HHPs that we continue using across different array of crops. And we work with different partners that we collaborate with, not only under the Root to Food Initiative, not only ourselves. We work with organizations like COAN. I would like to appreciate also BIBA, CGA, COTRI, and others are part of our partners in this campaign. We also do our public awareness through the media engagement, not only through the documentation and this kind of engagement we are having. We have gone to partner with the media, and I would really like to appreciate the media for picking up some of our work and also the statistics, the data that we produce, to be able to use it to have empirical evidence when they communicate with the different fora or the different public segments in terms of the toxicity in our food. Social media is also very key. The Root to Food Initiative is very active in social media and also with our partners taking also the kind of effort that we have in our partners that we work with. BIBA, CGA are very active in their social media, also the route to food. So please follow us, and this is a kind of work we are doing. Now, very important, and this has been mentioned earlier, is that in 2023 September, we were able to launch the Toxic Business Report, which flag out key statistics that my colleague Silke is going to delve in. And very important, I would like to say that this has been our backbone of having solid data, solid information, empirical kind of recommendations that have come from this data that we can be able to support and apply in our policy work. So very importantly, this is a document that we should proudly use without any fear in terms of the solidness of the work that was done in our toxic business report. It was based on empirical data. I will not flag out the statistics. They have been repeated every now and then, and I know my colleague is going to bring this into our knowledge. Here we are, all through a lot of campaign, advocacy, awareness creation, critiquing, and sometimes we were called a propaganda institution. I know there were people who are not happy with us, they branded us, but we are here to discount and say that sometimes we give solutions, using the exact words that was used by Mr. Joachim. We give solutions. We are saying that we have got alternatives. We have got a way we can be able to achieve food that is less toxic, so to speak, of food that has no toxic ingredients as we eat it. So we come up with a practical guide that has been done by our farmers for farmers. Why do I say so? I can see Marie is smiling. It's true, Marie. I know you are heavily involved in this process, and thank you so much, colleagues. You are many who are involved in this process, and you know yourselves, we cannot mention you here, but we really want to applaud you. We really want to thank you for giving us the valuable knowledge that our team that did this work could not have without you. So thank you very much. So this guide is a response or a reaction to those active ingredients that we found were poisonous. We were wondering, how do we come up with a guide that our farmers can refer to, not always working with a panic that what I'm using is highly hazardous, but they have no solution. So that was our mantle, that how can we be able to come up with a process, a product, and a tool that will be able to answer the question, how do I farm without depending on the HHPs? So this guide provides simple, actionable solution that empowers our farmers, one, on soil health management, on aspects of crop rotation and intercropping, and last but not least, on biopesticides. So we are looking at the practices, and if the practices are not sufficient, you have got biopesticides that you can use. So there is that kind of alternate processes that a farmer can use. So it's more of a suit. It's not a straight jacket process. And let's know that this is a process that farmers need to go through for them to realize a system that is self-sufficient, a system that is resilient to overcome the load of pests. So colleagues, that's where we are as a foundation. And from here, we are going to proceed to get some of the key highlights of this document. First, we'll have my colleague, Dr. Silke, who will be able to take us through the background a little and how this interconnects with our HHP report and the guide, because this is very important. And then Sylvia is going to dwell on the document itself. And allow me to say that, having said that, I would like to appreciate again the farmers and tell you that farmers, our consultants, you have a document that we are proud of. I'm a farmer. And this is a document that talks to us. It's not a document like we have done before that we as a scientist, we as policymakers, we talk to farmers on what we want the farmers to hear. Hope you get that. That has been the extension approach in the past, whereby we took that farmers don't know, we know. We as extension officers, We are the scientists, we are the academia, we are the researchers, we thought we know. So please, feel proud that this is your document that comes from your knowledge as farmers. It's not from the elites, in quote. So farmers are elites, we are in the one, we are union, isn't it? So colleagues, very quickly is that I would like to give you a very quick snapshot of the kind of consultants who read this process, and they will be coming, whereby Silke, Dr. Silke Bolmor, holds a PhD in environmental science and is an ecologist with over 20 years of experience tackling pesticide-related challenges across Africa. Dr. Silke is the author of several key reports on pesticides in Kenya, including the handbook of farmer guides the handbook of farmers producing food without toxic pesticides, being launched today. She has extensive experience spanning academia, advocacy, business, and government. I didn't know you have got business background. Kudos, Silke. She brings together science, activism, and policy to advance agroecological farming solutions. As a permaculture, Silke proactively works on solutions to reduce pesticides and synthetic fertilizer use, fostering farming practices and harmonization with nature. I'm sure colleagues, you know our colleague Sylvia Kuria. She's a household name in organic farming in Kenya. Being a farmer and an entrepreneur with 15 years of experience, Silke has been able to transform her half-an-acre family farm into a thriving 15-acre operation. Isn't that a big milestone that she has achieved? So through Sylvia's business, that is Sylvia Basket, Sylvia aggressively aggregates over 5 tons of organic produce monthly. 5 tons. Supporting smallholders, farmers in Kenya. So she collects her produce from small-scale farmers or smallholder farmers. She's passionate about training other farmers in organic farming and market access. Ms. Kuria is proud to have played a major role in developing this guide to make vital information accessible, empowering farmers to make informed decisions.
I don't want to bore you with all these difficult names and impacts of the different type of active ingredients. I don't think this should be the topic for today, but I just want to give you a little bit of a highlight why we need safer food and why do we need this manual and why is this manual just in time. It's a bit of a repetition we heard already from Joachim and Haroon, so I will try to keep it very short. Okay, so I'm very happy and actually also very proud to be part of the team behind this manual, because this is the first of the kind from Root to Food initiative to look at the solutions. We heard already about that. We did lots of reports and analyses to describe the problem. We analyzed the health and environmental impacts of registered pesticides. We went out to the farms and did lots of questionnaires with the farmers to understand their use of pesticides on the farms around Kenya, to get an idea of that. We also analyzed residues in food, so we know that we have a problem in food, that there are pesticides in the food. And we also came up with a toxic business report last year, which Haroon already mentioned as well. So now this is really a very, very big step, solutions, and I'm very happy to be part of this. And all these reports came up with a clear message. We really have a serious problem. Why do we have a serious problem? Kenya is very much reliant currently on very toxic pesticides, unfortunately. And the pesticide use has more than doubled in 4 years. These are quite old data from 2015 to 2018, but unfortunately we don't have more recent data because that's also quite a problem. We can't get hold of data. So the pesticide use more than doubled, and even worse, we heard already, 76% of these pesticides are highly hazardous pesticides. And these are pesticides farmers using on a daily basis in Kenya. Now, what are highly hazardous pesticides? We heard already they are very dangerous to people, to animals, and to the environment, and they can also cause serious illnesses, long-lasting illnesses, not just like symptoms like vomiting or like headaches, but really long-lasting chronic illnesses. Like cancer, for example, and we found that 5 of the active ingredients, and these are active ingredients, they are more than in 5 products, cause cancer. 35 active ingredients can harm the ability to have children, so they have an impact on the fertility and also have an impact on the unborn baby. And 20 active ingredients can have an impact on the nervous system, especially on the nervous system of children. So if children are exposed to these pesticides, for example, chlorpyrifos, which Joachim mentioned already, this can be very dangerous. And we also heard that they have very long-lasting impacts on the environment, the nature, the ecosystem around us. That's what we actually need, a functioning environment to farm in a healthy and productive way. So they have impacts on soil, on water, and on pollinators, and to speak more broadly on biodiversity as well. So 27 of these active ingredients can actually kill pollinators and bees. And that's why many of them are already banned elsewhere, and not just in Europe, also in other countries. And I give you, later on, I give you one example. But in Kenya, 44% are still used, despite the fact that many Kenyan farmers don't have access to protect themselves. They might have the knowledge to maybe keep a distance to the river system, to protect the river system, or not to spray when the polluters are out. So this is a really big problem. 44% banned elsewhere around the world, but still in use here in Kenya. And I just want to give you one example, chlorpyrifos. Chlorpyrifos, and this is a table I just took out of the manual. You find it at the back of the manual. Chlorpyrifos is already banned in 39 countries around the world, including Vietnam, including Thailand, including Morocco and Egypt, and also South Africa is about to ban chlorpyrifos. But it's still in use in Kenya, in altogether 9 products, and some of the products might call, remembering that you can remember or recognize the products, they're called Dursban or Pyrinex or Bulldog. So, and they are banned in other countries because they are very toxic to reproduction system, fertility, to the nervous system, especially to children, as I said, and to pollinators and bees. But Joachim and Harun said already, there is light on the horizon. PCBB is announced to withdraw this end of this year. And so this is just in time, because we now provide with this manual alternatives to not use chlorpyrifos. And if you want to get more information about all these different active ingredients with all these difficult names, you can have a look at the manual or at the handbook right at the end. We just gave you some of the information in case you want to know the active ingredient you have still in your garage or on your farm, and you want to know, is it very toxic? Can I still use it? You can use this at the end of the handbook and check what impacts these pesticides might have. Okay, but now let's really move to the manual, because I think you're all quite curious about what's now in this manual. What is the information you provide us? We not just want to talk about the past, we now want to talk about the future. And we focused in this handbook on 6 different crops, and that's based on the information we got from all the other reports I showed you just now. because we found out that 6 crops need currently most of the highly hazardous pesticides. And the first crop, sort of leading the list of highly hazardous pesticides, is tomatoes. So farmers using 75 different highly hazardous pesticides on tomatoes. That's why we included tomatoes as a crop for this manual. Followed by maize, by cabbage, by potatoes, by leafy greens, and last but not least by onions, which needs 16 different highly hazardous pesticides. So you will find all the information, and Sylvia will talk a little bit more about that later on. Okay, so to summarize, why do we need this manual? Food safety is really urgent. I told you that we analyzed pesticide residues in food, and we found, for example, on tomatoes, 18 different highly hazardous pesticides. That's a lot. And when I was talking about the 6 different crops, it's not just that they are probably poisoned with pesticides, but they are also part of our daily diet. So that's why we included these crops in the manual. We thought these are the most important ones, although we know there are others which are quite important as well. But this is hopefully just the start. Now, food safety is urgent, 18 different HHPs on tomatoes, so every meal should actually nourish us and not expose us to harmful chemicals. And soil degradation is a growing crisis. 65% of soils on the whole African continent are degraded already. That's a lot. And pesticides contribute to it. And we need to stop this. Biodiversity loss is also a growing crisis. We heard about it already. And we need this biodiversity. We need different organisms in the soil. We need the different good insects, the pollinators, to be part of the pollination system for high yields. And we also need biodiversity on our farm to diverse our income. And last but not least, farming is getting too costly. Harun was already showing some figures on how much farmers are spending on pesticides, and just chlorpyrifos is like $4.1 million US. That's what farmers are spending just on one active ingredient. So that's a lot, and we can save this money for better farming purposes. And another one, information is not really accessible to most of the farmers. We all know that. The extension services are very lean and they're very much demand-driven. And most of the farmers go to the agrovets, right? To ask the neighboring farmer. And the agrovets or the chemical companies like the sale representatives. And you can imagine that they don't show the farmers the more natural organic farming practices because they have a business interest in selling their products. So that's why this manual is also very important. Okay, so this manual should provide alternatives to highly hazardous pesticides. It should speak to the farmer in easy language with easy to follow illustrations. And as I said, it focuses on 6 different crops, which I mentioned, and it focuses only on the main pests and diseases. So we're not covering all the pests and diseases. This would have been too much. We just identified, again, with the previous studies, the most important ones. And now, before I hand over to Sylvia, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. When we want to, when we're talking about farming without toxic pesticides, we can't keep the business as usual as it is. As you can see on the picture on the right-hand side at the bottom, that's a monoculture farm, maybe degraded soil, no diversity, and you will have quite a high pest pressure in these systems. So we really need to think systematically and holistically to change the whole system first. And that's why the whole manual, or the handbook, I always say manual, but it's actually the resource guide, is basically focusing on prevention. Yeah, because it's very difficult. If you keep the farm as you see on the picture at the bottom, it's very difficult to just substitute maybe a toxic pesticide with a biopesticide. So we really need to start in the beginning. And I think that's very important that we all here on the same page in terms of focusing really on the prevention. And prevention means cultural practices, means diversity, soil health, water management, making sure that the crops are feeling well so that the pest pressure is not too high. And if the pest pressure comes up, then we use biocontrol measures, and if there is still a problem, only then we use the biopesticides. But Sylvia is going to lead you through the whole resource guide right now.
Is there anybody else who is struggling with something else in your farm? Is there a pest, is there a disease that gives you a little bit of a headache when you go into the farm? Ama nyinyi farm zenyu hamnanga hizi shida? I want to know. Yes? Okay.
Hello, Jambo, good morning. Jambo, my name is Paul Kinochi from Meru. One thing that is really troubling us is termites. Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's good news for Sylvia. I think she should be dealing with these things, and maybe she has answers to some of these questions. Yes?
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Geoffrey Juma from Rongai. Well, a notable pest that I have come across severally is the FAW, the fall armyworms. Yeah, I did a study, a data that was taken from Rwanda, but along my way to Homa Bay, or rather my hometown, I have witnessed this pest, the fall armyworms. I think it is something to be noted.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Evans Mswahili from Vihiga in Western Kenya. For us, it's a question of becoming victims of our own success. Because the more you make your farm biodiverse, the more we have birds really preying on almost everything on that particular farm. And you really cannot control birds that easily. So I'll be happy to hear some of the perspectives from here, how we can tackle the menace of birds.
All right, thank you. Sylvia,
Yeah,
as you can see, you have a lot of questions to answer, so...
I'm ready.
Okay, nice.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm sorry about the technical hitch. So as you heard, my name is Sylvia, and as I go through the manual, I'm very happy to share with you, basically the major issue that makes farmers not transition. The issue of handling pests and diseases. You find farmers really want to transition, but I'm happy to hear about the snails. Snails are difficult, but there are still solutions when you talk about diversity. Termites, let me just say real quick. Something I learned from one of the field officers from BioVision Africa Trust. He said when you have termites bothering you, it means your soil actually doesn't have enough food for them. So what we did, we actually just removed the soil, we gave them food in terms of twigs, leaves, and water, and it worked out. So as we go through the presentation, we'll actually find that, the guide actually answers those questions. That how is it, whether you're a small-scale farmer, medium, large-scale farmer, can you actually transition? Is it possible? And after my presentation, we'll actually have a panel where we're going to have farmers, small-scale farmers, large-scale farmers who are actually going to share with us and tell us that it's actually possible. So let's agree that crop and pests are the ones that make farmers not transition. And why is this so? Why are pests and diseases such a huge menace, that we are not able to actually transition and say that organic works. Number one, let's accept that we have really used the synthetic inputs for such a very long time. And, we have created superbugs. I had an example of some farmers in Ukambani who actually told me that there's actually a weevil that is eating the cereals, the lentils, in the garden, even before it gets to the store. Which actually means that's a superbug, because how do you start dealing with weevils in the garden before you've even harvested and packaged in the sacks, you know. And when you think about our climatic conditions, you know, they attract a diverse amount of pests and diseases. We have very nice warm areas, you know, it's very nice and warm and wet, of course. Because of that, you find that we have a lot of pests and diseases. And then the poor soils. If you want to manage your pests and diseases, make sure that your soils are rich. I've shared with my brother about the termites, but you find that our soils are depleted of any compost material. They're depleted completely and very dry. So that what happens is that the plant, you know, doesn't even have any natural immunity. When you think about how the soil is structured, you know, you have a soil microbiome that is able to, you know, create natural immunity for the plants. But you find when you have poor soils, there's no immunity, and that's how you find lots of diseases. Lack of diversity on the farms to attract beneficial insects. Whenever any of you guys visit my farm, you'll find I have a lot of flowers. Why? The flowers attract beneficial insects that actually manage aphids. So you find that we don't really have very good diversity. We are really doing a lot of monocropping systems. When you have a monocrop, say for example, I did it once. It happened before when I wanted to be a cabbage farmer, and I wanted to grow organic cabbages on 3 acres, you know. So I had lots of cabbage everywhere. But guess what happens? It was actually a heaven for the thrips. It was a heaven for spider mite. It was a heaven for aphids, because they look right, they look left, they look in front, they look behind, and there's food everywhere. So that's a problem of monocropping. But you know, when you have, you know, like diverse crops, then you're able to manage that. And then also, as Silke had mentioned, of course, prevention as a key factor to mitigate pest and disease control is not really practiced. So we don't really do prevention. We are more like dealing when the issues are there. So when you get a copy of the manual, you'll be very happy to go through chapter 3 and 4, and I just want to take us through it very briefly. Chapter 3, of course, then talks about the natural control of pests and diseases. When you look at that picture that we have there, you know, it's very nice. It actually shows about the diversity of crops. It talks about the soil protection. You have a good environment. And you have like multi-layer cropping systems. You're doing crop rotation. And when you have a picture like what you see there, it's almost like the forest. I'd like us to think about the forest. When you go to a forest, say for example, do you ever find lots of pests? Do you find diseases? Why is that so? It's because it has created an ecosystem that is able to support each part of the forest. And when you find that, you know, when you want to create an ecosystem, or you want to create a microclimate, say for example on your farm, then you also have to have diversity. You should have your hedges, your rows. You're doing crop rotation. You have different crops. You have diversity. You have trees, and sometimes even we're talking about weeding. You don't have, you know, you see how to manage the weeds, but not all the weeds in a way. But you know, we just have to think about how we can actually now create a system, and also think about the preventive measures to keep pests and diseases at bay. And still talking about the preventive strategies, you know, we are thinking about how when you look at the manual, we have really spoken about the different issues. Say, for example, things to do with mulching, timely weeding, you know, making sure that you don't have too many weeds. And my brother talked about the thrips in onions, you know. One thing that brings about the thrips is also the weeds. You know, if you make like if you have weeds in between your onions, you're going to get the thrips there. We talk about crop rotation, whereby you grow the different crops. Say, for example, if you had onions, you don't grow another crop that is affected by thrips in the next round to cut the cycle of that. And then also when you think about planting on time, when you plant early, that also does really help. We've talked about the natural enemies that you're able to attract. We also talk about the push-pull technology on how you're able to manage the maize stalk borer with the farmers who are having issues with the fall armyworm. So this chapter is going to be very interesting. I really like the way it has a lot of pictures, and it shows the strategies very, very clearly for farmers, that they can actually be able to look at the farmer. And when we call this a guide, it's actually for the farmers to actually be able to have a look at the guide, use it as a manual, put it in their pocket, and be able to use it whenever they want to start a new crop and just wonder, how do I manage and how do I focus on having my preventive strategies? And as we continue, we're going to look at chapter 4 that talks about the specific pests and disease control. This chapter is quite interesting. We've tried to make the pictures quite clear. And here we'll basically be speaking about the major pests and diseases that are affecting the crops. This is just an example of the leafy greens. We may not have it all conclusive, whereby you have all the pests and diseases that are featured here. But what we did, we actually took some time. We went around visiting farmers, getting to know the farmers who are growing these 6 major crops. We spoke to them and asked them, what are the major crops affecting you? The major pests and diseases affecting your crops. So those are the ones that we have highlighted for the 6 crops. So here I just put an example where we are talking about the leafy greens. We talk about the aphids, we talk about leaf miner, cutworms, and there's also more information that actually talks about the different diseases. For here, we have brought about very practical cultural practices that have really been emphasized, that are more preventive, and also we've given the farmers an idea of what they can actually use for biological control. So we have a few pages that talk about the 6 different crops, major pests, major diseases. May not have everything there, but we believe that this guide will actually help the farmers move from using the highly hazardous pesticides to actually having cultural practices and biological control that actually works. Something that we also found that has worked very well in the guide is recipes. So as you go through the guide, you'll find that at the back, we actually have recipes for this biological control. So I've just put an example here of garlic spray. And these recipes are actually very simple. They're homemade recipes that anyone can actually use. They have clear instructions, and farmers can actually be used to manage pests and diseases on their farms. And when you go through this, the recipes, you'll find that we actually put into consideration using local materials that are found on all farms. And you find that the farmers are not going to struggle in any way, but they can actually be able to use them. So this guide is actually a one-stop shop, because it starts off by sharing with the farmers what are highly hazardous pesticides, what are they exactly, and then we go ahead and we talk about what pests and diseases are affecting us, and then we also give the recipes on how to manage the pests and diseases. So we move on to the guide application and call to action. We've talked about it. My colleagues have spoken about it over again on how we're really excited that this guide is actually very easy to read. We're very careful to make sure that though it's in English, we hope maybe one day we'll actually be able to have it in our local languages. But it's very easy to read. And one thing that I find that is going to be a great help for farmers is that farmers are actually going to be able to use this guide to make informed choices. As you go through the guide, we actually have a page where we teach the farmers on how to read what is the active ingredient. If you agree with me, when farmers actually go to buy the inputs, they would normally go to the agrovet and just ask, say for example, they want this particular brand name. Let me not speak about any. Let me say the one that I use, neem oil. So when I go to the agrovet, I'm going to say I want to use neem oil, say for example. But you'll find farmers are not able to refer on that same product and actually get to know what is the active ingredient. And this guide actually shows the farmers how to read the labels and know what is the active ingredient. For example, for the neem oil, when you go buy it, you actually find that right over there, the active ingredient is azadirachtin. And that then now shows that that is what is found in this bottle. Now, when we go through the guide, at the very last page, we have an appendix. And in the appendix, we actually give the names of the active ingredients in terms of, I can't pronounce them, but Silke said she has all the names there. But actually, you'll find at the very end, you'll actually find that we have the names of those active ingredients. So this guide will actually help farmers to refer to it. So farmers can literally take this guide, go with it to the agrovet, and when they're making a choice, they can actually tell very clearly what are the highly hazardous pesticides, and this one I should be able to avoid. And that's why, we say that this is a very practical reference for farmers, and they have information on their fingertips. And, as we think about still the call to action, we have many people represented right here. We have students, we have scientists, we have the private sector, we have academia, and we have civil society. How does this guide apply to each and every one of you? For students, we are trying to encourage you. Use this guide as a reference for sharing information with the farming communities around you. For the private sector, how can you be able to share this information with the farmers who grow food? If you're actually someone like me who is aggregating, this manual is going to be very helpful for me to actually share with the farmers, to actually support the farmers to avoid using highly hazardous pesticides, and of course transition to growing safe organic produce. And by the way, all farmers want to grow organic produce. It is the how that has always been the issue, and until now we feel that we can actually have a reference and a guide for the farmers to answer the how. Academia. I know I've interacted with lots of professors and students, and I know that they're teaching units, especially those who are doing agriculture, they're teaching units on organic farming. We're asking the academia, how can you be able to incorporate this guide in your curriculum studies in organic farming, so that the students, when they do the units in organic farming, can actually have a guide that they can use when they go out and work with the farmers. To the scientists, I'm very excited that we actually co-authored this book with the scientists, Silke, and I'm here, a farmer. And we actually had the best example of how we've been able to bridge science and practice. Scientists can also use this guide as a reference tool for farmers to be able to transition again to agroecology and organic farming. We have quite a number of civil society represented here. They can be able to incorporate the manual in training programs that emphasize on production. We have PELAM, we have BIBA, we have C-Shape, we have different civil society organizations that are here, and want to be able to see this guide can actually work with us, especially when it comes to production systems. You don't have to wonder what you're supposed to do. You can actually refer to the guide. And finally, a few pictures from my farm to show that it actually works. It's possible to grow safe food. It's possible to grow it at scale. We have our mixed farming systems with our animals. We have crops, we have the bees, and we have the flowers. Thank you very much.
All right. Another thing that I've tended to notice in our discourse, especially with food safety, is there are those who believe that food safety, that there is a hierarchy. That for those of us in the developing world, we should first focus on food production, and then later on, when we will have reached this mythical state of development, then we can think about food safety. I think that is hogwash. Food safety is part and parcel of food security and must be considered as you talk about food production. So it's like, you can chew gum and take the stairs at the same time. It's not a big deal. But I want to introduce to you some speakers who will give us a little bit more about these issues that we are talking about. I don't have their bios with me, but I think they will introduce you themselves. So first I want to invite Mr. Kuria, who is representing Engineer Laban Kiplagat from the Ministry of Agriculture, who also happens to be the chair of ISFA, which I coordinate. So let's give a round of applause to Mr. Kuria as he comes over to make his speech and introduce himself. I think it's always good to give people a chance to introduce themselves so that I don't make mistake.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Godwin Kuria. I work with the Ministry of Agriculture. I head environment management. So you can imagine how important agroecology is to me. Environment is very, very key. In the ministry, we have many, many multilateral environmental programs, and we are signatory to also many, many environmental things that we want to do within our country. And most of them, you realize, cannot be done without agroecology. Recently, we launched a strategy. I don't want to mention it because I'm sure Engineer Raban Kiplagat, who is our engineering secretary, you are guest today. He was supposed to make this particular speech. I have his speech with me here, and I will be reading through it. So I don't want to preempt what I think he's already saying. All I wanted to say before I read this speech, you know, after I read the speech, I was not the guest. I cannot add or minus anything. So all I will say is the ministry takes agroecology as the pathway, especially to meeting biodiversity targets that are very key to our country. We cannot live in this world without coexisting with other living things, and agroecology is the way to go about it. So I want to go straight away because Dr. Auru, I can see he's already looking at his watch. He has told me I have only 5 minutes. So I want to go through the speech of Engineer Raban Kiplagat. Like I said, he's the engineering secretary, and he makes his apologies. He was not able to do this himself, but he sent me. I now read his speech. This is a speech he is making to you at the Kenya School of Monetary Studies today, and he starts by addressing all distinguished guests, farmers, development partners, all stakeholders in agriculture sector. Good morning, everyone. And his words were, it is his great honor to join you today for the launch of the Farmers Resource Guide, which explores how we can produce safe, healthy food through agroecological practices. This is not just a launch of a publication, but a celebration of a movement forward with resilience, sustainability, and empowerment of Kenyan farmers through transformed agricultural systems. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, agriculture remains a lifeline in our economy and the anchor to the rural livelihoods. And at the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, we recognize the immense contributions our farmers who work tirelessly to feed our nation. We are also keenly aware of the growing challenges they face: climate change and pest outbreaks, rising input costs, and the need for sustainable practices that enhance productivity while safeguarding our environment. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, today we are gathered here to celebrate an important step forward, a guide that equips farmers with the knowledge and practical tools that they need to adapt to sustainable farming methods based on agroecological principles. Agroecology offers solutions that are rooted in our natural environment and aligned with our traditional knowledge. It focuses on building healthy soils, increasing biodiversity, and fostering resilience. The guide exemplifies these principles by presenting simple, field-tested practices that can transform our farming systems. And he goes on to elaborate healthy soil as a foundation, in which he says this will nurture their soil, and organic compost, cover crops, mulching, ensuring they support healthier and more productive plants. Then natural pest management, The practical solutions like crop rotation, intercropping, biopesticides derived from neem, garlic, and chili are included to reduce pest outbreaks without compromising farm ecosystems. Improved crop management is also very important with techniques such as push and pull from carry, method that accompanies planting of sustainable ways, enhancing yields while protecting crops. These methods are cost-effective, environmentally friendly, and most importantly, accessible to every farmer, regardless of their scale of operation. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the launch comes at an opportune time as it complements the recently unveiled National Agroecology Strategy for Food Systems and Transformation, launched on the October 28, 2024. The National Agroecology Strategy provides a policy framework that underscores the role of agroecology in achieving sustainable food systems, improving rural livelihoods, enhancing resilience to climate change. The Farmers Resource Guide arguments this strategy by serving as the problem with our technology. Sometimes it jumps where by enhancing, let me get back to the Farmers Resource Guide arguments this strategy by serving as a practical tool to operationalize its objectives as the strategy lays out a vision for agroecological transformation at a national scale, where the guide empowers farmers with the day-to-day practices and techniques needed to bring this vision to life. The Farmers' Guides bridge the gap between policy and implementation, ensuring that the goals of the strategy are not only aspirational, but also actionable at the farm level. Additionally, the Farmers' Guide supports the decision of the Pest Control Products Board, PCB, decisions to withdraw certain plant protection products by providing variable alternatives. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, through this synergy, we are creating a cohesive approach that aligns policy frameworks, farmer empowerment, and stakeholder collaboration to build a truly sustainable agricultural sector. Looking ahead, we envision a Kenya where farmers adopt agroecological practices as a way of life, supported by strong institutions and policies. Our soils will be rejuvenated, our biodiversity will thrive, and our communities enjoy improved health and nutrition. Kenya leads the region in demonstrating that sustainable farming can be the cornerstone of a resilient agricultural economy. The vision is not just aspirational, as he had mentioned, it is attainable with collective effort and the tools we are equipping with farmers today. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, as we launch the Farmers Resource Guide, I call upon every stakeholder to embrace and promote its use. To our farmers, let this guide be your companion as you work toward healthier farms and more sustainable livelihoods. To our partners in civil society and research, I urge you to amplify the guide, reach and deepen its impact. And to the policymakers and leaders, let us continue to create an enabling environment that champions agroecology and ensures its success. In conclusion, with the National Agroecology Strategy as our blueprint and the Farmers Resource Guide as our practical tool, we can build an agricultural sector that is resilient and meets the needs of today while safeguarding the future for the generations to come. I wish you all success in implementing the principles outlined in this transformative guide, and asante sana and God bless Kenya.
Or maybe I can tell you a little bit about myself.
Yes.
the thing running through my mind right now is TikTok. There is this TikTok trend that introduces a person. I don't know if you know it. I feel like usually a friend comes and then somebody else comes. I feel like this event has been leading up to my unveiling. So it has been Joachim, it has been Haron, it has been Sylvia and Silke, and then here I am. I am the farmer. If you watch TikTok, you'd understand why that's funny. Anyway, my name is Marie Nganga. This is my very first time to present as a farmer. I am both nervous and proud in equal measure. So please smile back at me and encourage me. I'm here to just share my experience. I represent Maridad Farm. Before I was at Maridad Farm, I was a lawyer. Before I was a lawyer, I was a communication expert. So I have quite a diverse background. But proudly, now I am a farmer, the most proud farmer you will find out there. Why? Because even as you pronounce those pesticide names, I don't really know them. I didn't go that route. Let me tell you a bit about how I came into farming. My husband, who is Waihenya, was my catalyst. He watched this film, and if you've never watched it, look out for it. It's called the Sugar Film. And quite urgently, we as a household had to quit sugar. We also urgently had to quit processed food. And that led to the question, how do we do that? It was harder than we expected. It wasn't that easy to quit. And we said, what if we go on a juice fast? So 28 days, we said we will eat nothing else, we will juice. The weekend before we were supposed to begin, it hit us. I can't juice for 28 days and eat things with chemicals. So I called the grocery I used to buy to at the time, and I was like, do you have anything organic? She said, I don't know, I can't be sure, I don't think so. And so we started looking. Luckily, somebody knew Sylvia. We had known Sylvia for a while, and so we got a lot of our veg from Sylvia's basket. We started. You would not know it from my size, but I did 21 days of a juice fast, guys, and it changed my life. A passion was born because of how difficult it was for us to get the diversity we needed for these juices. Because these juices weren't just fruit. It was cauliflower, it was broccoli, it was carrots. It was such a mixed plate of food that we were needing to juice. My husband and I wanted to learn how to farm. So this is our backyard. Living in Nairobi, we started a kitchen garden. And this is the story of my farming. This was the third trial, and this is the one we are most proud. You can see the nets. Those are literally mosquito nets we removed from our room in order to protect our crops from the pests. We realized we needed to read a lot. So we started to read. I've got books, I have a library. I read about syntropic, agroecological, farming God's way, regenerative farming, organic farming. But 95% of the books I was reading were European. So there was a disconnect there. But nevertheless, the mission had been launched. My husband and I were like, this is the time to do it. We didn't have children at the time, so it felt like a good time to take risks. And off we went. Looking, should we farm in Naivasha? Should we farm in Nanyuki? We ended up in Nanyuki, and if you've met my husband, he's a go big or go home type of guy. We started on a 60-acre farm. I know. This was the experience, launching us into 60-acre farm. What have we learned? One, I would say, you just make the choice to farm sustainably. If you make the choice, you will find a way. We made the choice that we just really would not learn to farm conventionally. We said we have committed. This was born out of trying to heal ourselves from the inside out. There was no other option for us. So that was one of the things I'd say we learned. The second thing we've learned over now the 3 or 4 years we've been at it is you need to be patient. Soil doesn't build overnight. You need to be patient. Culture does not change overnight. So with the Nairobi mindset, we kind of just calmed ourselves down and allowed ourselves to learn the environment that we were in. stopped fighting with nature and looked at what can we learn from nature. So we were patient. The other thing I would like to highlight as a lesson is organic vegetables taste amazing. I don't know if you knew that. If you can tell, I like food. Organic food is amazing. You Nairobians do not know the joy of taking maize off a plant and roasting it and eating it. There is nothing tastier, honestly. Organic food, we realized, has amazing shelf life. So it wasn't making sense to me why not more people are doing it. If you take my products, I can assure you you'll have 3 or 4 weeks of shelf life. And I'll tell you a little bit about that as I talk about market later. The other thing that we have now come to agree is that organic farming is cheaper. Initially, there was a lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes were being done, a lot of product was being sold to us, and we didn't know what we were doing. But now, as we kind of ease into farming, when we do the mathematics and compare to our colleagues who are not farming our way, I can assure you, this is the cheaper option. And so I don't understand why more people are not doing it. So how are we doing it? How have we been doing it? This is our farm. By the way, I need to say, Nanyuki seems to be a forgotten area. A lot of the people don't come our way, mostly because our land looks like this. It's dry. It needs a lot of regeneration. We are hot in the day and cold in the night, very desert-like. But it farms good food. What are the things we are doing? This is a picture of a mixed block. We farm pretty much mixed. We try to weed, but as you can tell, we have not weeded fully. We weed near the crops, but try and keep a little bit, because we realized allowing the biodiversity, even of the pests, was helping us fight the pests. We practice crop rotation. Let me show you a little more. We do intercropping. Can you see our watermelons? They were growing with kunde. That was an experiment. It worked surprisingly really well. We have, I think, French beans there. We try and protect our soil as much as possible. I don't know if you can see the coriander somewhere there on the corner. We use coriander as a border crop because we realize ladybugs love coriander. And when the ladybugs come, I'm telling you, we don't have any aphids anymore. So we utilize those kind of things as border crops. You'll see a lot of marigold and things like that. We used cardboard on our paths. I went and spoke to a local supermarket and I was like, how are you trashing your cardboards? I want cardboards without any ink on them. Can I use them on the paths? Surprisingly, it worked so well. The reason I was doing this mostly is because I hate walking on mud. So I was looking for a way not to walk on mud. So I told my husband, get as many cardboards. And it works. And it does decompose. So it's good for the soil. Another block there is showing mulch. But recently, I am with you who have been struggling with snails. We've had to pull out our mulch in order to deal with the snails. So basically what you learn is a good farmer adapts and changes with the season. It's very active. It's not just wait and be fed. It requires a lot of activity. This is the other things we do. This is actually Tom, who moved with us from Nairobi, who now proudly calls himself a farmer as well. He literally only wore this jacket because we had good people coming to take photos. Otherwise, nothing that we are spraying is harmful. Literally, the recipes that have been provided in this book are the same ones I use on my 60-acre farm. I can tell you that they work. You lean on them mostly in the beginning, but as you build your soil, less and less, you'll be leaning on them less and less. Initially, we had aphids. Infestation, I had never seen that many aphids in my life. But the biopesticides worked. We've had thrips, we've had snails, we've had just as many pests as the rest of you do, but biopesticides have been our go-to and they have worked. However, I can tell you the longer we farm, the more seasons in, less and less we have pests on ground. It is becoming a lot easier to farm. And this is how I have the time to leave the farm and come in and share with you what I'm doing. Otherwise, in the beginning, there was always something the matter. How are we building our soils? Can you look at that beetroot and that courgette That's from our farm. It is so exciting. We literally have farmed over 45 different types of crops. I have farmed, literally, you name it, I have farmed it. Because remember, our initial mission was to feed ourselves and buy nothing. So I've tried it all, from celery, cucumber, broccoli, courgette, sweet corn, maize, French beans, garlic, onions, everything. It's over, at one point we had over 40 different crops on ground. We have scaled down a little bit just to commercialize. But we grow good food. Wait, sorry, I didn't tell you how we build the soil. We feed our soil. The saying goes, we don't farm crops, we farm the soil. This is what my husband and I have been doing. I'm out of time already. Okay, let's see what I'll take out. Maybe just to show you the pictures then. But we feed our soil. We believe that when you feed your soil, it in turn grows your crops. So we prioritize compost, liquid fertilizers, which I make myself, I enjoy it. We literally spend majority of our labor and time feeding the soil. And then in turn, look, we grow 7-foot tall maize, as you can see there, and 3 or 4 heads. It repays us. That is our farm as well. We practice minimum tillage. We tilled the first time, and since then, very rarely will ever pass with tillage. We do a lot of scouting, so we have standard operating procedures that we follow just to make sure that we are not caught off guard. We know that dealing with pests, it's better to prevent them than fight them. So that us, instead of tilling, we have made tools that don't turn the soil, but in turn help us to remove the few weeds we are found with. Let me rush through it. Are there market opportunities for pesticide-free produce? Yes, they are. We at one point were exporting maybe 20 to 30 tons a week of French beans to the European market. In order to do that, you need to be growing good food. You know they won't take it unless it's amazing food. The other thing, are there market opportunities? Yes, they are. If we, the consumers, demand them. If we go to our circles and say, I want organic, then there'll be room for us to supply organic. So the market opportunities is two-pronged. We want to farm it, but we also want the consumers to demand it as well. The thing about being able to be, when you farm the way we do, you are confident that you can never be caught with residue. Our product has been tested so many times. And one of the things our exporter loved most about us was he could be sure they would never find any chemical residue on our product. The other thing that came from the test of our products is that it is very nutrient dense. This is how food was supposed to be. It is healing from the inside out. And I believe it healed my family and myself from diseases that were plaguing us. This food that we eat has done what it's supposed to do. We just probably need to eat less of it now. Lastly, how do you work with others? This has been very difficult. When we went to Nanyuki, people didn't understand what we were doing. Sorry, I have such bad footage for what I want to share. They didn't understand what we were doing. They looked at my portions and honestly called me a witch at some point. And I realized I need to draw them close. So what we did was employ all the women from around us, literally the nearest homesteads, and involved them in what I was doing. As time has gone, they have become believers, and they are in turn telling people, they are the ones who tell people their food is best. They do it the best way. I've never seen fertilizer on that farm, yet they grow very big cabbage heads and everything else. So that's how we community collaborate. Recently, we took a break because the rains of El Nino pounded our farm, and we decided to give in to Mother Nature. We got very overgrown blocks. So we have now invited the community to come and graze on our land. They are helping us by eating down the grasses, and I hear the cows love the blackjack weed that is on our farm. They're producing more milk. In turn, they are giving us manure. So it's a very good barter trade system. Whenever we have surplus, the schools around us are the first ones who we share the surplus to. And we have been very open with sharing our knowledge. We feel like the more people hear that this is the way to farm, the more of us there is, the less resistance we have on all forces. I'm so glad to hear that government wants us to farm this way. I'm glad to see and be part of a document like this. I looked for these resources when I first began, and there was nothing localized. A lot of the documents we're getting, they would farm for a season and close for winter. We don't have that. Our pests don't take a break. You know, they only get stronger. They become superbugs, as Sly said. So it's so good to have a document that is made for us and by us to help us with our issues. I pray that Heinrich Ball will do more and more of this kind of information. I know that if we share this to as many farmers as are there, we will start a revolution and we will begin to farm nutrient-dense food that heals the nation.
It's a pleasure to be here, and feel very, very proud that what HBS is doing to help the local farmers. Mentioned in my biome that my personal journey started into organic space 22 years ago when our family decided to go back and adopt our ancestral roots of medicinal practice. And then it was taught to me that food used to be medicine. And from there I realized that, how people eating supposed healthy foods, fruits, vegetables, and whatnot, and yet they're falling sick to some dangerous illnesses. And then the whole idea came that find out where the problem is. It is in our food and the systems and growing of foods. From there, I realized that, okay, high HHP, I didn't even know the term then, but HHP, the chemical pesticides, chemical fertilizers, is where the excessive use over the time has brought all the problems. And I pursued my passion into organic, and I started educating myself more and more, and here we are as Veda Organics. Thank you very much. And today's topic, we are here going to discuss about food production without toxic pesticides. Bit about us: we are based in Kibwezi, Makueni County. I took over this farm 2 years ago. Previously, it was a conventional farm where they were doing chemical applications. So I took on a challenge on myself and with all the neighbors, locals around, that is it really going to be possible to farm commercially, viably, organically? I said, let us see. We will only know when we try. So with our vision, we have, we want to create a world where food is just not for filling your stomach, but you want to have environmental aspects in mind when you're dealing with food. You want to talk about nourishing, you want to talk about healing. Food is, for me, food is medicine, and I think not only for me, for everyone, food is medicine. It heals. It is also supposed to nourish and replenish you with energy, and in a way which is environmentally sustainable. A bit about our mission: we are working hard towards educating communities, towards educating more like ecosystems. We are building a lot of networking where people are coming on, learning about organic food production systems, and why we should also consider environment when doing so. To give a break, some of the topics that we are discussing today, and that is, we're going to talk about how I transitioned. I've already given a brief. Also implementing cultural practices, biocontrols, biopesticides, building soil health, very, very important. Market opportunities of pesticide-free products is very, very big. I'll just say it in a nutshell. And community collaboration is also important so that more and more farmers can know about what's happening. But before we even dive into that, can I say very quickly that these are most of the challenges faced by farmers who are doing commercial farming or conventional farming rather, and high level of residues both in your soil, in your food. In turn, it translates to plates. It's coming on your food plates. My colleague talked about how these things affect people on a day-to-day basis. Then soil is also very important, and contamination in soil, water, your turfs is very, very high nowadays. You are finding the leaching. You're finding people living downstreams have issues medically. Their fertility issues are there, and those kind of other effects. And there is also on the insects and weed, superpests. We talked about superpests, which are getting formed, is again due to the heavy and long-term uses of these pesticides. And soil toxic buildup has been really horrendous. People used to have farmlands which could produce 60, 70 bags of maize, which have dropped down to 4 or 5 bags of maize because the toxicity is there, the productivity has gone down. When I say toxicity is not directly to you, but to the microbes and microbiome of the soil, which is really, really important for people to, and the farmers to mention and talk about. And last but not least, pests and diseases by the day. We have ministries which have to work day and night tackling the issues of health and spend millions, if not billions, to kind of, help them come back into the systems. So very quickly, we'll just go into what we did at Veda Organics to kind of mitigate and overcome these challenges. So we started growing healthier foods, and when I say healthier foods, we started selecting the right kind of varieties. I come from Asal region, which is very dry. It's even warmer compared to Laikipia, and we don't even get that cold at night. And water is the biggest challenge in the area. So what we wanted to showcase to the farmers in the Asal region, which is 60% of the country, if I'm not wrong, farming is possible if you can manage your resources well. We're tapping into organic market opportunities, not only for the finance bit of it, but also because of the ethical reasons. I feel it's very important. As farmers, we are responsible for giving people good food. We want to be leaders or help become, advocates in transforming agriculture practices. Soil restoration is something personal passion of mine, and I've been working towards it. Food security, sustainability in our area is a big challenge because when there's no rains, there's no food. And so I want to see how building your soils can help you get better food. The presentation is long, time is less, so I'm going to quickly go through. But one of the initiatives we're doing there is we have an indigenous tree seedling nursery. We are working with a lot of schools and other foundations and government in terms of restoring biodiversity by doing a lot of tree planting and providing planting material for them. Biopesticide and cultural practices. The book has covered a wide range of cultural practices. And having said that, today in Kenya we have a good option of, good number of biopesticides, companies doing biopesticide, biofungicides, and in general, a lot of work on organic space. But personally, we do our own concoctions, or you'd like to call them recipes, for biopesticides, intercropping, and repellent cropping is also something my friend does, and we also do uses of things like Mexican marigold. If you see, there's one of the pictures which looks like some bubbles and fuzzes that is actually creating your own fermented cultures at the farm. And we do that, and we teach to others also. Having a cover crop is one of the other ways. We've seen that weeding, Sylvia showed and my friend showed, we don't weed everything. You leave some weeds so that the pest can move to them. When you give them no option but to go to your crop, that's when they will come to attack you 100%. When you give them diversity, it's like a restaurant, you want to eat one thing today, the other day you want to eat something else, and you can kind of, distract them. I can't say completely take them off. So that has really helped. We use a lot of sticky traps, stickers like color traps, blue and the yellow ones. You have some solar traps which we use at night for attracting insects. Because the pictures are so many, so to squeeze into the slide, I only have a few. You can see one tree. We also have indigenous trees or repellent trees like neem, very, very vital. And else we continue. Building soil is a very important topic. And what I've done, I've realized that building soils, we have raised the soil carbon by 1%. So building soil was the first thing we realized. So in the past 2 years, we have just worked. You can see how we do cover cropping. We don't leave our soils exposed. And by that, we are building a very rich microbiome of our soils. We use diversity, we use animals, we use sheep for grazing, we don't use herbicides, and in turn they're fertilizing our soils at the same time, getting rid of the weeds and saving us labor too. So financially very good. Very quickly, key points on production. Organically, it's very profitable. It's, your soils will be better, and we use different systems. Because of the time, I'll have to skip through very fast. Market opportunities, you can see we have export grade products, also choosing the right crops. We talked about, people having tomatoes being the largest HHP users. We have chosen an indigenous variety, and there are a lot of indigenous varieties available, heirloom varieties also, which are resilient and pest tolerant. You can see on the slide how the products come. Again, community collaborations, we had likes of BioVision approach us to develop a farmers resource center at our farm, and we are also showcasing by doing different, you need to have biodiversity on the farm, so having animals, having multiple crops. At any given time, we are also growing about 40 different crops on our field for rotations and for just biodiversity's sake itself. We are also doing some research work with an institution called ECP on a biofertilizer that we are developing at our farm, which is in Kefis right now. Very soon it will be available. In summary, doing organic and pesticide-free, you get higher profit, higher yields, improved soil health, sustainability is there, food security definitely is there. So all in all, for farmers who think that farming organically is difficult, not really. Initially, you will take some time to learn, but eventually it's going to be more easier and more profitable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vinay. This actually proves that these things that are in this Farmers Resource Guide actually work, and we have practical examples of people, farmers who are applying them. Of course, there are challenges here and there, but what I like about it is be patient. Things don't happen overnight. I think part of the problem with conventional agriculture is this, you want everything overnight. We have overnight celebrities, we have, overnight instant coffee type of things. So patience is a virtue that I think we must all cultivate. Let me introduce the next and last farmer who will share with us. Bwana James Njuguna is a farmer and beekeeper. He's also serves as the director of LRI Village Trading, a collective of farms in Kajiado South, focused on sustainable crop and livestock production. Over the last 8 months, he's been working with the Route to Food on a project aimed at integrating agroecology into Kajiado County government plans by engaging with local farmers. So let's see how some of these ideas are being integrated into county development plans and involving farmers who are essentially the drivers of this transformation that we want to see.
Asante Doc. Good afternoon. As I have been introduced, I will not add anything much than said. We farm at Kimana in a village known as LRI, where we have a farm that is 8 acres, in which we've been practicing agroecology for the last 4 months. But this farm was acquired by my parents back in 1976, and I've just come to take it a few years ago and decided that I was going to transit it into an organic farm. So my journey in transition into agroecology over the first 4 years included an year of not farming. And it's because we wanted to have the land begin to heal from years of exploitation, excessive use of fertilizers and all that. And that process, we believe, is still ongoing up to now, even as we try to farm sustainable. During this period, we allowed the land to grow wild vegetation, we cleared, we let everything rot, and all that during that process of transition. During transitioning, another thing that I would advise farmers is you need to be very practical on the crop you choose during that transitioning period. You might not choose tomatoes to start with farming in a sustainable agroecologic system of farming. Utachomeka. For us, we decided to go with crops such as millet, sorghum, and fruits because they are a bit adaptable. They can withstand some harshness and the changes that we bring into the farm. Don't again transit completely. Especially during that first year, avoid HHPs, apply organic, but also apply conventionals that are not HHP only when needed during this transitioning period. But don't apply HHPs, and apply only when need be. Implementing cultural practices at Elerai village. Of course, we do crop season selection. We are not going to grow tomatoes in July, August because of blight issues, so we'll avoid them. We will choose a crop that can survive during that period. We adopt solarization or soil solarization. In the case of nematodes and all that, sometimes you just let the sun burn the soil, and you slowly eradicate the nematodes. Seed selection. You see, at Elerai village, we think systems, and we think a holistic approach to farming. Therefore, the seed you select should be conditioned to the climatic condition, environment that you're farming. And here's where we also advocate for indigenous seeds, which are conditioned to our environment, if it's arid, if it's the highlands and all that. Crop rotation is another cultural practices that we are adopting. So, for the people who have suffered snails, we suffered locust. And what we did, we released our chickens into the field, and they cleared the locust. So release your chickens, ducks, whatever, into your field, and they will clear your snails, and you'll have very healthy chickens. Integrated pest management, one very functioning way, especially when dealing with aphids, is we have created a push-pull system where we've grown lucerne and bracharia, and which help us. Lucerne, because of the high nitrogen, helps pull a lot of aphids. Now, we don't want the aphids in the, we grow a lot of apples, about 2,200 trees of apples, and we don't want the aphids on that field. But we don't have a problem with aphids being on the lucerne, which we are going to chop and give to our animals, and add more protein into our animals. So for the bracharia, it attracts lots of spider mites, so we pull them away from our major other crops. So Haron almost always says that I am an advocate of rabbit urine, and it's because it has worked for me. And it has worked for me in the apples, in the vegetables, that is managu, spinaches. It has worked for me recently for tomatoes. And so that is why I advocate for it. So choose yours, but if you want to know how mine works, you can see me after. But don't do like what Joachim did and ended up with burnt offerings. You have to make sure that the ratios are pretty well. Building soil health. So for us, we use boma manure, and we mix it with lots of stock, plant stock, so that we achieve the carbon to nitrogen right ratios. And another thing that is important to note here with our boma manure is that we purposely have animals to produce our own manure from the goats, and so that we are sure of the quality, the contamination, we control contamination of the manure that we are bringing into the farm. And so I have demonstrated how that works, and we apply as informed by a test we conduct annually to know what is missing in our soil. And in the event, we also supplement with trace elements that are organic that we might not get from the manure. I am trying to finish within 5 minutes. And so for our market opportunities, this is what we have experienced at Elerai. We sell 70% of our produce on the digital platform. I've had some of you say, oh, nimekuwa na Twitter. I sell there. I sell apples, I sell honey, I sell everything, and I sell 70% there. So there is a market. We are in farmers market, where we're selling about 15% of our produce. And at the farm, where our local people in the village, our local traders know about our produce, come to buy another 15%. There is an increase in the organic market. You'll find them a lot in the supermarkets today. We have not explored that line, but also I believe that is an area that we could probably explore going forward. Our community collaborations include, our farm is a demo farm. In fact, we are developing it to be a field school for farmers from around Kajiado to come and learn. About last month, we had a group organized by the CGA to come and learn about agroecology, sustainable farming, and all that. But our farm also is in a group of farmers who are creating demand for agroecological policies within Kajiado County. And we meet there, we decide what we want, and we are pushing those things in the county mainstreaming agroecology initiative. And part of the issues, for example, with HHP is that one issue that we pushed through a petition that is now sitting at the assembly is that we want agrovets regulated. And it's because we cannot have people who are not practitioners prescribing drugs to our farmers. So we want practitioners prescribing drugs at the agrovets, and so many other things that I may not be able to deal with today. So HHP free food is a reality at Elerai Farms, made possible by an intentional commitment to grow food and protect the world biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mananjuguna. Very critical. Agriculture is devolved, so counties have a very big role to play. Now we've listened to, policymakers, Bwana sharing with us what is the policy environment around these issues, and also we've heard from farmers about what they are doing, some of the success stories, probably a few challenges here and there, and how they went about this. Allow me now to introduce some researchers who will also give us that research perspective around what are some of the research questions that they're dealing with, what are some of the solutions that they're working with. So Dr. James Mwangi is our next presenter. Mwangi's research focuses on sustainable management of crop pests and diseases. His work is dedicated to developing and promoting IPM. IPM is integrated pest management strategies to enhance sustainable pest and disease control. He's deeply committed to farmer education and training on key issues such as pest and disease management, climate change, and improved farming systems. Daktari, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Let me confirm that, still morning. Thank you very much for this opportunity you've given me. It's quite a challenge to share my experience once our great farmers have spoken, because probably what I will say may seem more theoretical, whereas what they are shared is very practical. My work here is very simple, is to explain the scientific basis of what they are doing. I think that is very, very important, so that we appreciate. As you have heard, my name is James Mwangi. I work for Chuka University. I have an agricultural background, also a plant pathologist. I also happen to be a researcher and a farmer, but my level of farming is so insignificant compared to what we have here. I just want to paint, we have I don't know, maybe we start from here because we just had tea break and we anticipate to have lunch. I don't know how safe that food is. But I want to say that that food is as safe as the method that was used to produce it. And this is now where we begin. I think mostly we are concerned about food poisoning, food contamination. We pay less attention to that element of production. We need to focus there. So when you see what is on the screen right there, you should ask yourself, how safe is it? And that is what I want us to look at. Of course, we also need to appreciate the role of agriculture in this country in terms of poverty reduction, income generation, and food security. Not forgetting that 3% of our Kenyan GDP is agricultural based. And more than 40% of our people are working in agricultural sector. And 70% of those who are in rural background, including our family members and neighbors, they are doing farming. So it is a very, very critical sector that we cannot afford to ignore. The key challenges that farmers are facing, of course, among others, is the issue of biotic and abiotic issues to do with the climate factors and, of course, pests and diseases. And we will just talk about how we can address this issue of pests and diseases, but it's also good to appreciate where we are coming from. In Europe, some years back, they did a radical change where they did land consolidation. And that is how they were able to address the issue of food shortage. They cannot be able to produce a lot of food. They have highly mechanized systems. And what that means is that the farming system had to change. We are talking about a farmer who is doing more than 43 acres of land. That is the average acreage in Europe. And in this case, these farmers use like monocropping. They highly mechanize that process, and there is heavy application of pesticides and synthetic fertilizer. But now with time, we are realizing some of the limitations of that. And also we need to remember that the African context is different. We cannot have, very few farmers can afford to do 60 acres or 150 acres. Most of our farmers are small holder farmers. We must address them. So we want to build on those limitations that we've seen in other countries, and most importantly, the issue of pesticides and the drawbacks. Like one example is where you realize in some of those countries nowadays, it's very, very hard even to have pollinators around there. In fact, I heard that there are some areas where they even hire bee farmers to pollinate their crops. Okay, why? Because they have lost biodiversity because of the system they have adopted. To address this issue of pests and diseases, we have had excess use of pesticides. In this country, and particularly in Africa, we lack proper regulations of these pesticides. I like the issue that was raised by the farmer who last spoke here about how we are selling these chemicals and pesticides. Do we have regulations? Of course, regulations could be there. Are we implementing them the way they should be implemented? Our farmers, are they able to adhere to the instructions that are given, either because they are ignorant or because they are illiterate? It is us who should be able to enlighten our people so that they can be able to use these things the right way. There is the issue of poor handling of pesticides and also double standard that was highlighted this morning, where you ban chemicals there and the same company is allowed to supply them here. I think that needs to be addressed because there is a gap there, the double standard that I'm talking about. But the key point is that our farmers are lacking alternative information or option. And this is what we are here to provide so that we can move from the danger zone to the pesticide-free zone. Now the question is food production possible without pesticide? That is still debatable. Actually, I used this, I went to ChatGPT and I posed that question and I wanted to hear what the answer I get. And the answer that I got there is quote unquote from the ChatGPT. Yes, food production is possible without the use of synthetic pesticides, although it requires careful planning, sustainable practices, and innovative approaches. And I think that is what our farmers were telling us here. Okay? We may not be able to transition very fast, as he said, but that is our target. We must aim at producing clean food. We need, if you look at our farmers, like my grandmother, she doesn't even have resources to buy pesticides, and she has always been producing. How has she been doing it? Actually, without even training. What if, as experts and researchers, we empower such farmers to produce, using this safe method? It is possible. We need to tap on the natural potential of our soil so that we boost the soil health, and with that we are able to fight some of these pests and diseases. And I want you to see the last statement there, the issue of promoting biodiversity. Biodiversity is the key. And from academic perspective, when you enrich your soil, when you feed your soil, what are you doing? You are enhancing the number of microbes that are found in the soil, some of which can be able to parasitize and literally kill some of the pests. Like, for example, I am working with fungus that can be able to trap a nematode, and they can be able to literally kill it and use it. Okay? That is what we are calling the hyperparasitism there. It is scientific, it is proven, and that is what we are doing. We are talking about bacteria that can be able to produce enzymes that can deal or destroy or kill bacteria that are in the soil. Or even bacteria that can have antibiosis. They can be able to produce antibiotic. Just like what we are taking when we are sick. They can be able to produce compounds that can suppress, kill, or reduce the population of harmful pests and diseases. And most importantly, when you feed your soil, you also boost their immunity, in quote. The induced systemic resistance. When plant roots interact with various microbes in the soil, they are triggered, and their immunity is triggered, and they are now able to defend themselves. So it is good if we can be able to feed our soil well by adding a lot of organic. And that is why I would like just to mention a few things about this organic amendment in whatever kind, whether it is animal manure, plant residue, or whatever kind of organic amendment. It's very important. It releases nutrients in the soil. It makes your plant strong. We say that your health, of course, depends on what you eat. If you eat well, you become healthier, you become immune. The same applies to your crop. If you feed them well, they are able to resist or to withstand attack by pathogen, pests and diseases. It promotes, the soil is able to retain water, the aeration is good, and it reduces the stress that your plant would go through if you do not have a lot of application of manure. It also fosters the diversity of beneficial microbes, and that is the key. You need to increase microbes that are beneficial, the trichoderma, the bacillus, and others. They live in the soil. I think in primary school you talked about decomposers. The fungus and bacteria are called decomposers. These are the ones we are talking about. They will be able to help you deal with pathogenic microbes. We have fungus like the mycorrhiza fungi that will enhance nutrients intake. It will also change the soil pH, making it favorable for plant to grow, or unfavorable for the pathogen to thrive. A lot of organic acids are released. All those things. It is therefore important as a farmer. Make sure that your soil is well fed. Apply organic manure to improve your soil, to improve the plant health, and of course, you will be able to address most of these issues that we are talking about. And as I finish, we need to enhance the natural enemies within our farming systems. In our farm, someone talked about the ladybird there, the praying mantis there, and some of the wasps. They are very, very important because they prey, they feed on some of the pests that are very harmful. They are predators. These predators are the ones that are going to feed on aphids, the whiteflies, the caterpillar, and others. Others are parasitoids. They are able to inject an egg into the pest, and the egg will hatch inside the body of the pest and eventually kill the pest, like the wasp that you can see down there. Some of them are pathogens of the pest that we are talking about. Okay, so if you work on your soil and a farm, you enhance these natural enemies, and of course they will help you to address some of these issues, including others being competitor. We have fungus that compete with the pathogen for ions, like the ferric ions and others, and they reduce it such that the pathogenic fungus are not able to grow. Personally, I have a lot of experience with working with the with nematodes, because that's what I did I have worked on that for quite some time. Actually, I reported the potato cyst nematodes in the process of my work, and it has been a big story, and I'm glad that we are moving somewhere. But you can also try other things, ensure that there is a field hygiene. You need to monitor the plants that you have in the farm. Check those plants that can be able to hamper pests, or they are alternative. Whenever your crop is not there, they tend to survive in those other plants. Proper irrigation techniques, very important, because some of them, like bacteria wilt, will freely move from one plant to another if you're using flood irrigation. So it's also good to check. Are you going to use drip irrigation, sprinkle, flood irrigation? Tomato farmers are notorious of just flooding their farms, and that is why bacteria are also flowing freely from one plant to another. So think about the way you irrigate. Think about the rotational cycle that you use. I think you may have maybe in the past been told that you need to design a good crop rotation cycle. You must know families of plants so that when you're designing your cycle, don't repeat the same plant that is in the same family. If it is the maize family where you have the wheat, the rice, the maize, the sorghum, the millet, don't repeat another crop of the same family, because the pathogen are in the soil waiting for the next crop. So you need to have the cabbage family, the bean family, the maize family, and the cucumber family where you have the pumpkins and the butternuts and others, and then you can design your own cycle based on what you want. That breaks the disease cycle. The pathogen that is sleeping there waiting for the next crop may not survive because of lack of appropriate crop. It's very important. And if possible, try to use certified seeds. Well, sometimes the certified seeds are not as clean as they should be, but ensure that you have clean material, potato, if it is cassava, get a very clean material from the beginning. Cover crop, mulching, I think a lot has been said about them. Then the use of resistant crop varieties, that's also my area, especially when it comes to potato. I can assure you that like the potato seed nematode that we have in this country can be managed successfully using resistant potato varieties, and they exist. Only that our farmers are not adapting them because maybe they are not as good as Shangi. Everyone want to buy Shangi, you go to everywhere, Shangi is highly susceptible to that nematode. But maybe in the name of cleaning your farm, you should consider getting a different variety, at least for a season. It will initiate the hatching of the nematode, and they will not survive. Okay. You know, the trick is this. This is the second last slide. You use a resistant variety, the nematode egg will hatch, because they need chemical that come from the roots of nematodes for them to hatch. Once they hatch, they are not able to complete the life cycle because the host is resistant. So the host, the nematode ends up committing suicide. So you hatch hoping that you will survive. And once you hatch, you cannot go back to the egg. So you can use a resistant variety to induce that hatching. And then after that season, you go back to your Shangi. You will have reduced your population by almost 50%. Okay? Or you can use other crops like Solanum, Managu, because it's also in the same family. They will also induce hatching. And most of the varieties of Managu we have, they are also poor. They are also a poor host to PCN. So those are techniques that we need to know, and we need to use them. But of course, I would not encourage the continuous use of resistant variety. Otherwise, we end up having a new problem through what we call a virulence selection. Okay? Scientifically, we say that mutation happens once in a million. So if you use the same variety again and again, you may end up, the nematode may end up breaking the resistance, and it will now be able to grow on the same or to multiply on that host. So even the resistant variety, you need to take a break after some cycles. So finally, what we are doing, we have a team of researchers back in Chuka University, and of course we also collaborate with other institutions. We have collections of nematophagous fungi. These are fungi that we have found them parasitizing nematodes. Currently, we are doing few trials to see how good they are. They have been, some of them have been found to be effective elsewhere. But the good thing about this country or this region is that we have unique microbes that have not been reported elsewhere. And these are the ones that we are trying to work with. We are in the process of doing the few trials and characterizing them. And I invite any player in that industry who would want to work with us. We are open for collaboration because the idea is to boost food production and to help our farmers. We are also having tests on the best cropping systems that we can be able to to share with the farmers, and of course, the resistance-based management. And at this point, I want to thank the organizers of this forum, because apart from engaging us in the process of developing this particular book, we also now have a resource that we can use to train our students. We have a resource that we can use to train our extension officers, and including farmers. If you've been to Chuka, you know that we are at the center. We have farmers all around us. They come seeking advice from us. Now I have a simplified material that I can share with my farmers, with my students, and of course, as a small farmer, I can also use it. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. This is proof that, you know, the things that the farmers are doing are actually, you know, scientific. The researchers are just coming to prove that the farmers' knowledge and what you've been doing is actually scientific. And I think that is critical, especially if you're looking at transitioning our food systems agroecologically. We have to be scientific, but we also must work with our scientists, integrating indigenous knowledge and so on in the form of co-creation. The next researcher that I want to introduce actually needs no introduction. How many of you don't know Dr. Mihindo? Yeah, you all know him, so I don't need to introduce him. But anyway, I'll do the introduction. So Dr. Mihindo is has a PhD in entomology. He has about 3 decades of policy-aligned experience in extension innovations, farmer capacity enhancement, and so on. His strength is in the interdisciplinary research and training on IPM and agroecology. He is currently the CEO at Effective IPM Association, and is also a trainer, master trainer at the Knowledge Hub for Organic Agriculture in Eastern Africa. Dr. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How many of you don't know Dr. Mihindo? How did you know me? Yes, thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. As Dr. Oru says, I'm one, a scientist, and 2, I'm also a practitioner. And I think being the last speaker, I just want to affirm that what the rest have said is what I wanted to say, because they have talked a lot about cultural practices, and I don't think I have much to add. So I can only say asanteni sana for that. But I want to start by giving my own story, because thank you. I currently work with an institution or an organization called Effective IPM Association, and we try to bridge the gap between scientists and the farmers. And when everybody is talking, it is good that we are looking for solutions to the problems that farmers have, isn't it? But it is also important to ask ourselves, what are the causes of these problems? Because problems could be there, but they must have been caused by something. So what we do at Effective IPM Association is to look for the solutions, why those problems are there. And I think I'm not even going to spend my 5 minutes. I think I will spend 3. But in order to spend 5 minutes, let me give you my personal story. I was born and brought up in deep in the villages, and I was one of these boys who could not bathe. And I think I could bathe, but at least twice a month. And that was enough for me, and I was okay. And one of my friends were some of the pests that I think many of us suffered from. There were some black organisms in the head. How many suffered those problems? To us, they were not problems, because they were like a hobby, because we could sit down and start removing them. alafu we put, they are called rice. We put them one on one finger and we would crush them, and that became as a hobby. And we continued like that. And our mother was comfortable. Whenever we came, she would tell us, go and remove the rice from your brother. Go and remove rice from your sister. And we continued like that. But little did we know that we thought that our family had been bewitched. Because it was only in our family where these insects were coming. But after some time, my mother was told that, okay, there is a chemical that you can buy and spray on the heads of your children to finish these insects. So she went and bought the chemical. And let me tell you, after 1 hour, we were all lying down and we were like breathless, and she rushed us to hospital, and we were taken care of, and eventually we didn't die, and we thank God. We didn't know the name of the chemical. The rice died, and but we were also dying. So this is something very serious, because this is scientists you see here suffered because by the mercy of God. So later, my mother continued studying, and she was told the reason why these rice are coming to your children is because they don't bathe. They don't bathe. So she started bathing us, and after some time, we didn't have the problem. That's why we are saying that every time you try to think of a problem, we must first ask ourselves, why is this problem coming to me and not going to our neighbor? So we at Effective IPM Association have been following that principle, that whenever you have a pest problem, ask yourself this one question: what have I done, or what have I not done that is encouraging these pests to come to my farm and not to the neighbors? Each of our presenters, most of our presenters have talked about having remedies for the problems that we have. But we must first ask ourselves, do we have options that can solve these problems even before you start talking about biological control, even before you start talking about chemical control, use of biopesticides? And those are the ones that we call We call them the cultural methods. And the cultural methods are the normal agronomic practices that take place before, during, or after planting to ensure proper crop growth. These crops, these management systems are not necessarily meant to manage pests, but they help a lot in managing pests because they introduce conditions that will either repel pests or make the environment not suitable for these pests to thrive. And I have said that I will move very fast because all that I wanted to present has been presented, and I just wanted to give you that story so that you see where I have come from and why I started this journey of cultural management. We are talking about cultural practices like diversity, crop resistant varieties. My colleagues have talked about them. Then the issue of soil health, and every time we talk about a practice, a cultural practice, let us try not to relate it with the biologicals, because in IPM we say that we are not working with one method in isolation from the rest. I can boast because our organization works aloud looking at the active ingredients of most of these biological pesticides, most of these biopesticides. But is that the ultimate solution? The ultimate solution is knowing the cause of these problems and trying to solve the cause. And if your soil is healthy, if you encourage our farmers to have healthy soils, they are going to produce healthy crops that will either be resistant or tolerant to these pests, especially, and diseases. Then the tillage practices will help to make sure that you have some of the organisms dying from natural factors, or you will have some good release of nutrients. I'm going to move very fast. Then we have sanitation, and we also have the use of repellents, and this is in intercropping. And we have adopted, many farmers have adopted the issue of monocropping, and you know what monocropping has done. I don't have to overemphasize. So at Effective IPM Association, we have a center in Loiro where we try to encourage farmers to use different, to intercrop different plants to solve pest problems. Then we have the use of soil barriers to prevent splashback of pathogens into plants during rain or irrigation. Then I think this is my second last one. I said that most of the things have been done. The most important thing in IPM is for the farmers to understand their farms. Because here we are saying that, okay, we have got, my fellow doctor has said that we are developing a lot of products, which is very good. But farmers have the notion that these products are the savior, they are savior. But they need to understand what the problems are, and it is through a lot of scouting. I'm happy Maria's talked about that she scouts her farm every day to know the pest population development, to know what she has done and what she has not done that is encouraging these pests to come. So through monitoring of pests and diseases, we will allow for timely intervention with the cultural methods before the outbreaks escalate. So what you will know that you will see that there are two aphids. And what is the best method for you to use to remove that problem of two aphids? Is it to buy a whole tin of biopesticide? Dr. Waroi. The best method is to crush them, isn't it? The other thing you'll understand, why are these aphids coming? Most aphids will come maybe because there is a lack of water. So if you apply water, you remove the problem. So let us try to encourage our communities to understand the problems that they have before looking at the solutions. Because there are some interventions, cultural interventions that they can carry out that will help a lot. And through that, then we are going to reduce the use of chemicals, be it even biopesticides, because for us we have been looking at plants with the pesticidal properties. But we are calling them plants with the pesticidal properties, which means they are also pesticides, and they are not safe to our communities. So any pesticide is not safe to our communities, and we should try as much as possible to reduce their use. So I think I have used my 5 minutes very well, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Usually as a moderator, I'm forced to, try to keep time. And that means a lot of times the presenters might have a lot to say, but then I am the bad guy who tries to keep time. But I'm sure you also have questions that you want to put to them. So this is your chance to ask a question, share something that probably resonates with what you've already had here. Sylvia, I'm told you want to join our panel. And Silke as well. Let me see, 1, 2, 3 seats. And they're saying they need more women. So I need a volunteer, youth, woman, to fill the other seat. Tabitha, you have been crowdsourced to join this panel. So please prepare your questions. You can direct them to any one of the panelists, or could be a general question, comment. Yeah. And the mic is here. So if you have a question, just raise your hand.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony. I'm from Ambokili Farm, which is in Kimana, and I'm happy to have my brother here as well. So at Ambokili Farm, we have really tried to do a lot when it comes to organic farming, and we are glad that this team has put together this resource, which is very important for us. However, there is a saying that gari ya kampuni haiendeshwi vizuri. People tend to be careless when it comes to driving company's car. And this is what is happening in Kimana, because Kimana has large parcels of land. The Maasai communities are given 60 acres per person, and they don't use it. So farmers from outside, farmers from Tanzania, from Kenya, go to Kimana to do their farming there. And they do conventional farming using a lot of dangerous chemicals, and cheap from Tanzania again. So this is a big danger for us there. And as a farm, we have been affected by this, because in as much as we are trying to do this organic farming, the people around us with huge parcels of land are doing the opposite. So we not only get affected by chemicals that come through the ground, we also get affected by the smell. And given that Kimana experiences heavy winds, you get all the smell from the chemicals coming to your farm, which is a big issue. So Tabitha, we are privileged that Tabitha was able to introduce vetiver grass to us, which has really helped us to filter some of these chemicals. But there is still a huge gap. What solution would you give to us as Ambokili Farm? And is it in this guide? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we take a few more. But panelists, please just note the questions that are directed to you specifically. I need to pick.
Thank you, Dr. for picking me among so many hands. My name is Buko War, and my background is on cereal. I'm very glad that I've seen a lot of remedies or solutions to the problems that we are having. But I must confess that a lot of these solutions are on farm. I'm not seeing a lot of solutions coming in post-harvest. And because my background, I do a lot of work on cereals, which is the Kenyan staple food, I am interested in knowing how to deal with the mycotoxins, especially aflatoxins, which are a very big problem in cereals. We all know that aflatoxins are carcinogenic in nature, and also the causes of some of the cancers that we are seeing. We have the Kenya Cereal Millers Associations that also commented on the national TV that they don't have the capacity to measure the level of aflatoxin that they are milling in the cereals that in what they feed us with. Are there organic ways or biological ways in which we farmers can deal with these mycotoxins that are a big threat? And this also goes even to the government, Mr. Kuria. We've had issues with the strategic grain reserves storing maize up to the level that they're infested with these mycotoxins. And I know from the police background, I'm reminded that you have this dilemma of either giving Kenyan food that are not safe or letting them not eat and die tomorrow. You would probably want them to eat and die after 30 years, but feeding them with what is not right. Are there ways in which we can tackle this issue of aflatoxin post-harvest? And to Dr. Silke, there was a picture that you projected to us of an agrovet of 4 men buying inputs. I didn't know whether there are women in this business. Why are just 4 men alone buying inputs, are there no women doing farming? Thank you.
That's a serious question.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Paul Ouma, Farmshare Kenya Limited. My question is on organic farming, or the one we practice. We have few genuine solutions to the farmers or people producing the foods. Some people practice organic farming during the day, but in the night they do sprays. Others boil vegetables and pack them in cans to be taken as biofertilizers or fertilizer controls. My question is, as a country, we are trying very hard. We have people working very hard to embrace organic farming, but I feel like we don't have real, genuine solutions from most of these people who are selling these ideas. So, do we have a platform of which we can say that this food is being produced organically? Because when we look at the exports, when we take foods to other countries, especially the European countries, for them they have systems to measure that this food is organic, it has these levels of MRLs, all this, but consumers in Kenya, you just get it orally, that this is an organic food, consume it, but we don't have those platforms. So are we going towards a point where we shall be having a Kenyan standard? Recently, we have been talking of KS 1758, which is not functioning. We don't know where it went. It's just being mentioned. Are we going to a direction where we can be regulating the organic produce, inputs and anything to be, for us to have that organic farming? Thank you.
Thank you. Very important questions. Can we have a question from a lady, and then the panel can take those questions before we go to the next batch of questions, please?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I come from a village where, this goes to Mr. Kuria, we've not seen extension workers for I don't know how many years, since I was a child. When I go to secondary school, I saw them, and it's like they're not there. There are undertones that they're not facilitated, but we don't know. And yet, we have these structures in the ministry to help us at the grassroots as these extension officers. We also know, I know we also have the chiefs, chief barazas. And this could help us actually tell the people at the grassroots level not to use Roundup, which is so prevalent in my area. What is the ministry doing to follow up to make sure that the farmer is safe and the person who is actually consuming the produce is also safe?
Thank you very much. I think the panelists can take those questions, and then we can go to the next round. So, anyone, if you're ready and you have a question that was directed at you, or you want to respond generally, please go ahead. The mics are on the tables.
Afternoon, everyone. Is it afternoon? No? We're still in the morning. I think the questions were mostly directed at government. There are very many. And most of them are addressing the concern on pesticides. And I think that would be the right place for me to start by first saying that we have an association. Yes, it is under the Ministry of Agriculture, and it is the one that has the mandate to especially follow and ensure that the kind of chemicals that we import into the country are safe. And also the kind of food, feed, anything that we are giving our animals or ourselves taking is safe. And this is vested in Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Services. And you'll find we have stationed them in every border point, every crossing point within Kenya, the airports, the seaports, the other RAD ports. And every year, I'll just tackle the issue of chemicals. Every year we have an updated list of what is approved within Kenya and what can be brought in and what cannot be taken in. And I think we have tried to police this as much as possible. Let me say that most of the chemicals that are banned internationally are not banned completely in Kenya. And recently we have been following the international standards, especially ISO 1400s, and as you know, some chemicals like Roundup have kept on coming up. There was a time we needed Roundup a lot, and it had not been listed in that list. We had also, before you can list something as banned in Kenya, you also take it through quite a process, because these companies are strong and you have to give evidence to take it out. I think us having adopted ISO 1400s and a lot of the others, many of them now we are putting them on the red list as the government, and many of them soon you will not find them on the shelves. But you also realize that when we have an active ingredient that is not well known to everybody, even the people that we have on ground to ensure they don't enter. These commercial enterprises keep on changing names and giving us a lot of problems. Before we realize a particular compound is being used by farmers. And you know how difficult it is. You cannot be sampling everything at the border point. Sometimes you rely on what is shared as the contents, which may sometimes be misleading. That does not mean that we are also not doing something on ground. We are doing a lot in terms of farmer trainings. Safe use of pesticides is something that we are using as one of our greatest driver to having safe food at the markets and everywhere. You'll find many markets today have a safe, a person there acting as a safety officer. They do many samplings in Wakurima market, in even county markets, and you'll find they give us reports on what is happening. And when we realize there is a particular concern area, we are able to go out and train farmers. If there are if somebody needs to be taken to court, there are also things that we are doing. Addressing the same issue of safe use, remember when it comes now to farmer training, the mother ministry, that is the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, does policy work and capacity building. But the work of now training farmers is a county function. And I will also combine this with what one of the persons who asking questions here saying they are no longer seeing extension officers. This is also a county function, and we realize there are quite a bit of challenges. Counties have not been hiring for long, and we have pushed for many of the counties to hire now. You'll find many now have manned up to the ward level. By the time devolution was coming in, the national government had done divisions with the division offices and even sub-locations manned by officers and offices. And I know when you say you are not seeing The population now is 55 million. How many farmers do we have? How many extension officers? If that one officer is manning a whole ward, the model has changed now to one of doctor-nurse model where farmers are expected to visit the office, unlike in the past where most of the officers would make farm-to-farm visits. But these are things that the government is very aware about, and the national government, you realize, has a policy of augmenting what is being done by the counties. We have recently employed agripreneurs who are sent to the ward level, and depending with the kind of activity where you have in a particular ward, these 2 officers or even more are taking active action in particular value chains. That is an argumentation by the national government. But we are also keen on passing a lot of the messages through the online channels. You'll find the ministry has a lot of farmer education material. We are doing a lot of outreach through media. You'll find you have the many of our mainstream channels, Citizen, the print media. You always find something on agriculture. So I cannot mention all that the ministry is doing, but extension is still key, and we are doing a lot of that. What I would also want to pass on is that safe use of chemicals and making our food and feed safe is very important to us. On toxicity, there exists now technology to be able to remove most of the toxins that occur, especially in maize. And you realize we do surveillance, very serious, and we take samples in every supermarket. If you are doing any meeting, we also insist on you being certified, and certification is now done through the process. We see how are you storing the maize, how are you processing, how are you packaging and delivering to the market. Then after that, we are able to go to the market and do serious toxicity checks. And our grains at the grain handling facility in Mombasa, we have now put very, very strong surveillance on aflatoxin and even other dangerous things that could be in that. So that is an area that the government is covering very, very well. But as you know, prevention is better than cure. As somebody said about our grain storage, our grain is mostly stored at the cereals and produce board. And as you know, when it comes to aflatoxins, it's about the level of moisture content that you store maize at. You'll find all our cereals board stores are now supplied with dryers. All of them have mobile dryers, and they cannot keep maize that don't meet the standards. They are also doing outreach work. If you are a farmer and you have many bags that you want dried, you'll find a facility. You can go to the nearest cereals board and get to have to this, and you get a service at a small fee. So these are ongoing activities, and many of them you'll find need farmer training, user awareness, and also incentives. Incentives that I can mention from government are many. Many of the millers, we are giving them, they are able to import many of the things that are needed to cover things on aflatoxins, things on maybe adding nutritive additives to our strategic crops. This covers all the cereals, maize, rice, milk, because those are the most consumed commodities. These have stringent rules that are being applied now, but we are also giving incentives on transfer of technology. We are looking for many donor partners. We are also investing as a government in making them aware of the technologies and looking for that transfer to occur to Kenya. And a lot has happened in that space. So I think I can see he has moved his. That means I give the mic to my next responder here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Maybe later on you'll just address the question. Someone asked, is KEFIS mainly targeting the external market? Who is regulating within? But you've mentioned several. You could come back to that later on. Any of the panelists want to address any question?
I wanted to address the first question. You asked, what do you do when you're a good farmer surrounded by not so good farmers? That's us. And I was thinking about it. Initially, it was difficult because when I talk about the aphid infestation we had, was the next farm sprayed and they all landed on our crop. And I mean, we didn't have a lot of experience on it. I would answer it this way. The longer you farm, the longer you realize that part of farming is managing relationships. What we have done is I have spent majority of my time making friends. So now I know their spraying schedule. If I hear they're spraying for aphids, we are spraying soap. The aphids no longer a thing. So we are finding an ecosystem. And then over time, they've understood that we don't spend money on the chemicals. Now they ask me, what are you spraying? And I'm influencing slowly by slowly as much as they're willing to listen. So that aspect, I think none of us really dwelt on how important it is to manage the relationships in farming. It will go a long way, and that takes time, so it's not overnight. Initially, scouting will be the key. You'll just have to keep noticing what you need to change. That happens for us. The water, I don't know how to respond. There are some seasons, like now, where I wouldn't tap into river water. Lucky for us, there is a borehole. But, I mean, for some, there's none. But this is when we need to have conversations on storing rain-fed water in dams for you to use. Because for sure, when we were using the river water, there were diseases we were getting that had nothing to do with us. So, I mean, farming is a very active career choice that requires you to be managing multiple relationships. So use your workers, to get the information, use as many people to get to know, and then start to reverse influence. And soon you'll find you've created a community that more or less are doing it your way. Once you have proven your way makes sense. That's how it is.
I hope you picked that hashtag. Farming is about managing relationships.
And maybe from my side also to the first question, I think that's also a problem organic farmers have worldwide. That's why you always find residues on organic products because of spray drift and water contamination. So if you can't convince your neighboring farmer, you may also want to protect your farm. And in the resource guide, we also said, grow trees around your field and hedges to also create microclimates, different climate conditions, protecting, shading, but it also has the advantage to protect your farm from spray drift, if it's spray drift. If it's water, it's a bit more tricky. If you're along a river system and you're using the river downstream of a farmer, of a conventional farmer, that's quite a problem. But if you downhill a conventional farmer, you can also avoid the water entering your farm if you know the farmer sprayed by just digging hills and blocking the water off, which is normally not the best way to do it because you want to use every drop of water, but that's just a compromise.
Yeah, I wanted to comment about the first question on about Kemana. And the problem about Kemana and pesticides is not as simple as we are taking it, because a lot of chemicals are coming from Tanzania, and they are not only in Kemana, but they are in most of the parts of the country where we are producing tomatoes. And it is very, very serious because most of these chemicals kill the pests very fast, and we don't know the composition. We don't know what chemicals they are. So I would like to probably urge the government to help us so that our borders are so porous. Pesticides can come from Tanzania, from Uganda, from everywhere. so that we reduce the number of chemicals that are coming from outside. I'm telling you that even the tomatoes that are being farmed around Juja, farmers don't buy the pesticides against tuta absoluta in Nairobi or in Juja. They buy them from Kemana and from the border, and they bring them. And the way they are even packaged, they don't have any prescription, and farmers use them the way they feel is right. So it is good that the government also, as much as you are trying, I think we need to up our game in terms of making sure that the pesticides that are not registered in the country don't fight their way into the market. And on the question of genuine solutions for organic farming production, and the farmers who are spraying the pesticides at night, those are not good farmers, organic farmers. That is, we always have people who are not good farmers, but I would say that, maybe Sylvia will talk about it, that farmers have their own systems of guaranteeing each other that to make sure that what they produce is organic. Maybe Sylvia, you can mention about that.
Yeah, sure. In fact, I was just going to talk about it and just say that for us, we are lucky. In East Africa, we are a bit developed. We actually have the East African organic product standards that were put together, by the different countries. We have Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi. And those standards were actually put up there. COAN is the custodian of the standards, and COAN is the Kenya Organic Agriculture Network. You can get those standards, I think, on their website online. The standards came up in 2017. So we have different ways in which you can be able to verify if products are organic or not, and that is the major one that we are using. So we already have standards to answer your questions. Number two, where do you get them? You can get them on the COAN website. Who are the custodians? Number three, we also have like different private institutions that actually give third-party certification for farmers who actually want to be recognized as organic. And finally, we even have a program whereby we work with smallholder farmers who are able to check amongst themselves to ensure that they are all following organic, and we call that system participatory guarantee systems. And I'm very happy even there's a PGS group here from Kiserian. You guys put up your hands so that you can see that it's real. We have a big group over here from Kiserian who are actually organic farmers, and they're actually certified under participatory guarantee systems. So please don't give up. It's actually possible. And still, the final question again goes back to the government, and that's what Dr. Ulu was trying to bring up. KEFIS really works on the external markets, the exports in and out. But who is checking our local markets? And even if they check at the local market, as Marie was asking, how do you manage traceability? Because you'll find a tomato, yes, in the local market that has highly hazardous pesticides. But how do you trace it back to the farmer to make sure that the farmer does not use these inputs anymore? So we still have a bit of an issue in terms of the conventional markets for us to actually be able to trace, where these HHPs are being used. But I'm sure the government, as they have shared with us through Mr. Kuria, they're doing a wonderful job and working with us to make sure that we're able to have some safe food.
I would like to touch on a couple of different questions asked, starting with the first question, cross-contamination. It was my colleagues here touched the topic very nicely. Barrier crops, very, very important. Trees along the boundaries, but even internally, if you could work with grasses like napier and elephant grass, those are also very good barrier crops. Someone mentioned vetiver. Vetiver is very good for soil leaching and the contamination coming. As far as river water contamination is there, if you can encourage the society in and around you, because we also are, Asal area, we have rivers which are flowing. So what we do, we tell them to encourage and put reeds, maintain those different makutis and the river reed, those and the caxtail, they will help filter out a lot of the contamination coming downstream as you're a downstream farmer. For aflatoxins, I would like to just say that, again, it still also works at the soil level because the spores is mostly fungal. So these spores are always in the ground and they come into the plant systemic. So if we work on the soil, very, very important that you'll have aflatoxin free. Peanuts, I believe maize is still in a post-harvest, but mostly things like peanuts and sesame, it's all in the soil. So if we have the right kind of soil microbes, which will repel, it's very, very important to have that. And one question asked here was on herbicides. Herbicides is something is very difficult. As you said, there are many, many multinationals and large players in this. But you can, at community level, you can encourage, we use like sheep for controlling our weeds. And secondly, if you really do cover crops, cover your fields always, and then before the rains, put the right variety which is going to be very fast in terms of growth with broadleaf. You will see a drastic reduction year after year, and you will see in a couple of years you have really sustainably covered and controlled your fields. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we still have someone who wants to respond?
Let me just add my voice, particularly on the issue of aflatoxin. I agree with those who have spoken that it's caused by fungus. And this fungus is able to thrive when the temperature is good and the moisture. So it's about how we manage harvesting, particularly the timing. If you harvest when it is very wet and you do not dry your maize or your cereals properly, then you create conducive environment for the fungus to multiply, and it produces compounds that are toxic. So once those compounds have been produced, you cannot remove them because it's a chemical that has been emitted, produced by that particular pathogen. So how we manage the harvesting season, unfortunately sometimes the harvesting coincides with wet weather. So, and that is where now the government would really help us to have those dryers where farmers can take their maize and then it is dried to the required moisture level. But then how do you store that maize if you're not planning to dispose it immediately? You need to have a good store that is well aerated, and also you check the moisture content in that particular store. Otherwise, you keep it for a few months, then the mold or the fungus still develop. That is why if you buy your unga, your maize flour, and you keep it for some days, particularly in plastic containers, it starts having a bitter taste. It means that mycotoxins are already accumulating in your unga. But I also want to appeal to farmers, because we are the ambassadors who are sitting here. It's good that we farmers also practice the right or moral way of doing our work. I come from areas where we do maize production. And farmers are just funny people. They will select very nice, good maize, 3 or 4 bags for domestic consumption, and everything else, including the rotten ones, it's for sale. Yeah, for those of us who are in Nairobi, to take it. And I always tell my students that if you do that, a tomato farmer will spray those highly hazardous chemical today, and will harvest after 3 days and bring to the market. So we exchange. I'll take aflatoxin, you'll take the chemical. Or even a livestock farmer will deworm the animal in the evening, milk the following day, take the milk to the market. So we are exchanging. No one is safe. We need to train our farmers. Let's be morally, the way we practice our farming, we need to change. Okay? Then finally, about genuine solutions. I admire what these great farmers are doing. It's also about being creative, not just relying on the information that is provided. I can guarantee you that even this farmer's guide may not be exhaustive enough. It is good that we also try to experiment in our small ways and come up with things that are working, and then we can document that. I have shared a forum with them in the past, and I have realized that they are also very innovative. Actually, I can encourage them to publish some of their innovation. They can come up with wonderful publications out of what they are doing. Let us be also innovative. I have tried these in my small garden, and it works. And sometimes I escalate that to a standard experiment, and I end up coming up with a publication out of it. Let us also challenge ourselves, practice new things, and once you know they are working, in a forum like this one, we can share, and we can exchange that information. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe just briefly, the lady who asked about county extension services. Maybe one thing that we farmers need to do is create demand. And we need to organize ourselves and reach out to get these people. And I'm speaking from a very practical point. Sylvia, you remember when we started in Kimana 8 months ago, we didn't know our crop officer. Today, we meet that crop officer every 8 months and move around with him in farms to inspect what is happening in the farms. It's because whether we have Sylvia there or anyone there, when we call him, he will come because there is a demand for what we want. So it's up to us farmers to go out there to organize and create demand for what we want from our government.
Good afternoon. I'm Tabitha Nekesa, a young farmer, a researcher, and I work with the Institute for Food Justice and Development. So in relation to the first question, and also just as a solution to the issue of pesticide use in Kenya generally, one of the things that we have neglected as consumers or even as farmers is the power of awareness creation. We have neglected it to big organizations, you know, and it is actually the responsibility of each and every one of us to be able to be a source of solution to our food systems. And that is why it is important as organizations or even as individuals to be able to create awareness in the small spaces that we are in, perhaps through our social media. We have one of the farmers talked about TikTok. We have seen the power of social media currently. It's so massive, it's so strong. It's one of the things that we can be able to do. But at the same time, we as individuals at the place that you're at, we have the opportunity to share with our neighbors the importance of eating healthy or producing healthy, because then it begins at that small space that we are at. And I would like to commend the work that Ambokili Farm is actually doing in terms of that. The organic farm in Kimana, I live there too, so I have seen the ripple effects that it has had. Now also the neighbors are beginning to produce organic. I have interacted with a few small holder and also large-scale farmers in Kimana, and what I realized is the fact that this is probably basic information for me as a researcher, but for them, they're actually so unaware of the problems that we're having with these pesticides. So they are using, but not from a point of awareness of the negative effects that they have on the soil, on the environment, and in health in general. So we have that responsibility to speak so that we can be able to create healthy and sustainable food systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once a youth says something like that, we have a responsibility to speak. Then I think I must give you the opportunity to speak. So let's take questions from this side.
Yes, before we do that, I think we have some questions from a group that is following us online. So the first question is from Cecilia, and she's asking Veda Organics, how did you prepare the farm to transition to organic after a long period of conventional farming? The other question is from Daniel Kagure. Question to Marie Nganga. She said they farm the soil. Can you do this without requiring a soil test? And the last question is from Linda Karimi. This is for Sylvia. She's asking, where do you buy good seeds that don't require fertilizer? I farm from Meru. So those are some of the questions. Yes, from this side.
Thank you very much. My name is Onyango Lennox Ndeda, red astronomer and astrophysicist. My area of research is mostly in space. Rarely do I do research on Earth. But by virtue of being an inhabitant of Earth, yes, I'm a civil engineer, yes, from the University of Kenya, that is structural and earthquake engineering. My question goes to the general, our most serene panelists. Charles Darwin, just very quickly in 1 minute, Charles Darwin, when he went to Galapagos Island, the Cocos region, came up with the natural selection. And indeed, that is the blueprint of what we call organic farming, that survival of the fittest thrives in such cases. However, this is very aggressive. I'm going to livestock production. There is a very recent argument that all livestock in the country shall be vaccinated, old, young, whatever. From based on experience in the past few years, I'm not a medical, I'm not a herbalist or a medicine man. So COVID vaccine had dire effects. It was so sporadic. Polio vaccine, Minister of Health barely 3 weeks ago gave us effects. Right now we are talking that we are going to give a very radical revolutionary vaccine to all livestock, minus such cases. So in conclusion, we have seen cases in the past when Buphilas decoloratus and Rhipicephalus appendiculators infiltrated the livestock in this country. It necessitated vaccination. But what is the necessity that is happening now? Concluding and the epilogue of the same, Amo Serene Maria Nganga, given now that you are the most compelling and conspicuous member of the Octagon. Let us venture into organic farming, not just to achieve a certification of maybe fair trade or rainforest alliance and for market value, but let's change the cultural anthropology and the economic stimuli of the same so that we can venture into a more productive and for the youth to eradicate the social degradation, economic exploitation, and not a small degree of political oppression that happens. So the government kindly give me a feedback on the vaccination proponents thereof. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I was listening to him, but I could hardly understand what he was saying. It was too scientific. So my name is Esther Bett. I work for an organization called RODI Kenya, Resources-Oriented Development Initiatives. And we work with farmers in about 15 counties. But in the recent time, we've worked with farmers a lot in Kiambu, Machakos, Murang'a, and Nyeri on issues of agroecology, making biofertilizers, biostimulant, and using it a lot on coffee and food crops. I don't have a question, but I'm giving a testimony. The farmers we have worked with in coffee and tea production reduced the use of chemical fertilizer. Their production is very good. The beans in coffee are improving, and they are flowering better and developing resilience because the organic matter and the biofertilizer in the soil has improved. We use forest soil as one of the ingredients in our biofertilizer, and forest soil has the highest level of biodiversity, so it's put back in the farms, and the farmers have attested that they have seen a change. With the fermented liquid fertilizers, they're able to see a change within 1 month to 2 months. In the coffee beans, there's been a lot of change, and even in the food production, there's been a change. I've used it on my farm for coffee, for maize or tea, and aflatoxin levels have come down. The forest soil have a healthy aflatoxin that finishes the unhealthy aflatoxin in our soil. When you harvest the grain, make sure that your grain in harvest does not come in contact with the soil, and your grain will be aflatoxin free. So if it's dry and kept properly, you don't have the aflatoxin. Yes, organic farming works, and I'm testifying as an organic farmer.
Thank you.
Can you give, there's someone from, consumers, I'm told. Alice, short and brief.
Thank you very much, Doc. I want to appreciate the Henry Paul Foundation for this manual supporting this process. It's not really a question, but you can comment on what I'm going to say. What consumers need is safe food in the market. And for us to consume safe food from certain quarters, we need to enhance the trust between the producers, the retailers, and the consumers. So if you don't earn the consumer trust, it will be very difficult for you even to thrive in the market. So my concern goes to Marie. I would like to know, because one thing to produce and another thing to have the markets where consumers at the grassroots like me can access organic food. So we want to know what are the channels do you use to sell your produce. That's to you, Marie, because of what I listened to what you said. And I want to also, another one goes to the ministry. If we want to our citizens, the Kenyan citizens, to consume safe food, then we need to be willing to give subsidies to organic farm inputs. So how willing is the ministry to do this? Because us as consumers, what we need is safe food, and it's a right that is under the Bill of Rights that nobody will take away from us. And I'm joined here with most of us, all of us are primary consumers, even if you are producers also. I'm joined here by the head of other consumer organizations. You can raise your hands where you are. Sorry, I'm not taking much of your time. Just raise hands. Thank you very much. And also I'm joined with the consumers that we call to come on board so that we can listen, because we believe that whatever you produce is going to end up in one's plate. It's going to end up in one's stomach, and we want safe food. So we'd want to know, where do we access such safe food, and how can you build consumer trust? Finally, Njuguna mentioned about the consumers as an organization, Consumer Grassroots Association and the Coalition of Consumer Organizations. And our coalition, we are promoting safe food. Actually, we are the face of agroecology in Kenya from a consumer perspective. And to promote this, we went with some consumers to Kimana to know how food is produced in a safer way, to appreciate it and go to the market and demand for safe food in the market. So thank you so much for allowing us to come to your farm. Over to you, Maria.
All right, thank you very much.
Could we have the panel take those questions? Or there is a burning one that has not been asked before? Okay.
Thank you very much. First of all, my name is Josephat Ngui from Kiambu County, in sub-county Kikuyu, just up here. And I'm I do farming as a very, very smallest farmer. When I'm listening to what is going on here, I've found that most of these farmers are big farmers, which is good. But let me talk on behalf of the small farmers who are own less than an acre or so. But we farm for our families, but in excess we also sell them to our neighbors. Now, my question goes to Njuguna, Kuria, government man. When I used to work with the government, there was an organization called Bureau of Standards. I don't know whether it exists or not, because when you are giving us your response, I didn't hear you mention about Bureau of Standards, whereby anything coming into the country should be checked whether it conforms with the country's standards. Now, these toxic pesticides come from outside and come free. And you said, when you were talking, you talked of strong companies. I don't know that company which is stronger than the country itself or the nation, because they need to be skilled, to be prevented from entry. Otherwise, somebody who was presenting here, he said, we need to get the root problem, the root cause of the problem. And the root cause is those people who allow this, bad pesticide to come into the country, and then we use them. And now you're giving us solutions to how we can use them, and they are already let in. How do we go to the market and put somebody there to check whether they are bad or they are good when they are already under production? Thank you.
I think those are enough questions, but I can allow one. Brian, which one do we pick?
Hello. So my question, I'm going to base it on the knowledge gap that exists between farmers and researchers, academia, and I don't know, the 60-acre farmers and everything. The lady who asked about extension officers, I don't know if we come from the same area, because I think we are facing the same problem from where I come from. I'm a daughter of a farmer, a granddaughter of a farmer, so I know what's going on. But my area, they don't own 60 acres of land. They don't own 150 acres of land. Not everyone owns a small piece of land. And these people, when you talk about the organic farming and everything, I don't know if that is quite affordable for them. I would like to know how the affordability of the organic fertilizers and everything, because you see the pesticides and everything, if you have your 100 bob or 200 bob, you just run to the agrochemicals and then you get like 250 mLs of a pesticide. So, and then my next question is about about the food from the farm to our plates. You find that Meru has the highest number of cancer patients in Kenya right now, and it is quite an agricultural county. So I get quite concerned about the connection between agriculture and our health, because I find that even in the media, and you find that our parents, they're not quite on social media, they listen to radios, watch TVs and everything. Every week or every month, there is a new pesticide, and it has quite a, I don't know, kind of a name. So like, I'm wondering, if we're talking about the transitioning into organic farming, are we quite creating this awareness to these farmers who really feed us? Like, yeah, that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give a chance to the panelists to address these questions. If you had addressed them before, I know we tend to ask sometimes, repeat the question. So if you've addressed it before, no problem. But I mean, you can be able to sieve through and see what new questions that have come up that you can address.
Can you hear me? Thank you to the gentleman who has given me such a compliment. It's in the fields we don't get compliments. It's good to come out and hear them. Anyway, the lady on Twitter, or is it X? Sorry, on X, who's asked, "How do I farm the soil?" Did we do soil tests? Initially, we were coming on, and by the way, we do not own the 60 acres of land. We are leasing, and in the region I come from, I am called a small-scale farmer. So we need to realize that terminologies vary. The farms around me are 400 acres. I mean, and it doesn't mean the smallhold ones are not there, but I'm not considered a big player. I'm a medium, small to medium player. So that's a mindset I had coming in. I didn't realize that what we were trying to do was big. I only noticed it when I talked to Sylvia. Otherwise, from where I'm at, people farm quite big chunks. So why we focused on soil? So I got the soil tests, but as I mentioned, as a good lawyer, I was reading quite a bit. And the people who are talking about soil, the scientists, none of the names is coming to mind now, convinced me that all soil can grow food. So I knew my soil is deficient, but if I keep feeding this soil with the natural liquid fertilizers, with the compost, with the ash, because of how much manure we are putting, soon, it doesn't matter what we put. I farm on really bad soil, according to other farmers. According to me, who had the mindset that it would work, all soil is equal. It is what we feed it. So yes, my soil has sections where it's completely black cotton, holds a lot of moisture, and on some sections it's clay loam, which is, I mean, a bit better. But generally, farmers around me who own red soil would never come to farm where I'm farming. But I haven't noticed the difference. My produce is just as good looking, just as big. My yields initially let me give French beans because that's what comes to mind. An acre was supposed to give me 5 tons. I probably started at 3 tons. However, by the third cycle, I was on 6 or 7 tons. So feeding the soil does work. I do now not pay attention to soil tests. To be honest, I don't care. I pay attention to my crop. What is it teaching me? Is it doing well? Are my roots fibrous? What do they look like? Does the plant look healthy and vigorous, like myself? Those are the things I look at. I don't do the soil tests anymore. However, because of the nature in which we sell, we have gone through very many tests while we're exporting. I am no longer exporting. That is a story for another day. Somebody challenged me about exporting water. Do I realize that I am actually exporting our country's biggest resource, which is water? Because when you farm, you're farming water. And I mean, that's a story for another day. I'll tell you why I was compelled to look for more local markets. And I'll just roll into the next question. Somebody asked, what are my channels of selling? How I moved into local beyond that challenge of, what am I actually doing feeding another continent when we are not food safe ourselves, was somebody knocked on our gates. Many women would knock on the gates and say, I see you have a lot of managu. Can we buy it? Managu is our biggest weed. And I was like, what? You can buy it. That helps me with weeding. Close my labor charge. So these women were coming from Nanyuki market and began to go through the rows. I mean, initially I would tell them, remove your clothes, put new ones, check your feet, because I was trying to be a good farmer then. You should still do it, because they can bring you pests from other farms. Anyway, I allowed them in, and these women would harvest amazing. They were helping us weed our managu, and we were earning from it. What happened within 2 or 3 weeks, a lady came and said, oh, please, can you just allow us to be going through your entire farm looking for managu? Our husbands have said they are the best tasting managu. They're different from the other ones. I was shocked. I started eating managu. It was new to me. And I was like, it actually is very, very tasty. They are the ones who introduced me to the market in our county. And I didn't need to look for them. They brought the buyers of capsicum. They brought the buyers of everything we had, watermelon. I really have not struggled with the selling. I've struggled with producing enough, not with selling. Now, here is a question. When my product reaches the market, nobody can distinguish whether it's organic or inorganic. And I don't have the answer there. I don't have the solution. I am busy on the farm dealing with all the upcoming things. I've not been able to sit down and think, how do we make sure our product can get to the farm and be labeled as organic, so that the consumer knows this is organic? That needs a collaborative approach and a lot more people to come together and sell. For anybody who is interested in my produce, talk to me. I will get it to you somehow. So the channels are there. The produce is there. I think the question is more the channel is not as clear. We have just leaned on who has come and knocked on our doors first, and that's who we are selling to.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone wants to respond to any before we wrap up?
Yes. So it's. Oh, should I? Okay. It takes at least 2 to 3 years to transition to organic farming, and it's at least because it depends with the degree of degradation or contamination of your soil. So if a farm had been using the synthetic chemicals for about 60 years, it definitely cannot take 3 years. It would even take up to 10 years to transition to that. And in response to what my sister there asked, there are organic markets currently here in Nairobi, in Wayaki Way, in Thika Road, and we can still be able to share those contacts as we engage. So there is an uprising, or there is awareness about the need to eat healthy. Yeah.
Vinay, a quick one before I give Bonakuria to wrap up from the government side.
Yeah, there was a question directed towards Veda Organics and how we prepared our land. And basically we contacted the authorities which do certification. They came, they did some testing of the land and soils. They told us, yes, you'll take about 3 years to transition. we were recommended, and we did was, one of the things was resting the land. We allowed weeds to grow, and they are usually responsible for clearing some of the toxicity, and also planting other weeds which kind of rid the soil of toxicity and the bad pathogenic pathogens out there. So this was one of the methods we used to kind of, start building your land for organic certification. Thank you.
Yes, Bonakuri.
Thank you again, and the questions were very many for government. I will try to answer as much as possible. I'll start on the porous border we share with Tanzania. It's a very long one, stretching all the way from, I think it's the longest border we have, from Kwale Rugaruga to Migori, Isebania. What you realize is that government has made very, very many border points along that border, and we are controlling a lot of what is entering. But as you realize, it's a long one, almost 900 kilometers, and we realize a lot of control products are entering Kenya. And like the Kiabu farmer asked, who controls now the chemical that now is able to get into Kenya? We have two bodies in Kenya doing that. I talked about KBS. I also talked about KEFIS. But when that chemical also enters locally, we have the Pest Control Board and Produce and Products Board. That is the one that now is able to visit all chemists, is able to register the agrovets, is also to register who is administering what. And like I said, a lot of this work cannot be done through registration. You cannot be able to go to a market, arrest a farmer for probably harvesting kales before the 7-day pre-harvest interval, having used a particular product is done. So a lot of the work that is being done is through education and also sensitizing that when you sell that kale, you might also come to Nairobi and be fed on the same kale. So self-regulation is also the way to go about this, and we have an approach that we are using that is value chain led. That means we bring together farmers who are doing organic farming, they self-regulate, and even the market is able to identify them with a product, with a known standard. The same has been done for our export crops. We are also doing the same with farmers on all value chains. You'll find we have now the East Africa Grain Growers Associations, and most of these we are using them for self-regulation, awareness creation, and also for technology transfer and good practice. Finally, there was also the question of why are we vaccinating our animals? Vaccination of animals is routine in Kenya. It has not just started now. What is happening now is we have been able to deal with most of the hotspots where disease that is internationally recognized and that can make us not export our animals. We have controlled that. What is happening now, we are developing a disease-free zone. A disease-free zone allows us to export. And a disease-free zone, we realized cannot be a spot. We are exporting a lot of live animals. Our major abattoirs, we are now doing major ones, like in Kimana for the hide and skins. We have the KMC ones. And this means that most of our animal products are moving from all over Kenya. You can bring your animal to the KMC at the river depot all the way from Takana. So that means for us to be able to control disease. And when I mean control, most of the vaccination is done for prevention. It's not a cure, and it is not a new one. We produce it within the country at Kevavapi, and all that is happening is that when you are creating a disease-free zone, you also bring in the issues of public participation, so that everybody knows this is what we will be doing and why we will be doing it. I know it brings a lot of questions because it looks like now we are doing a lot of public, declarations on innovation, on why we are doing it. But remember, even in humans, polio, we have done it over some time. And when we have just one case reported in a county, we do the vaccinations in all neighboring countries. That is also what is happening in vaccination. And finally, they also asked about subsidies for organic farming. What has happened in Kenya is that for the first time we have a total soil map of Kenya. That means we know all the problems with our soils in Kenya and they are site specific. Today we are not just giving fertilizer because we need to give. These are precisely subscribed because of need. And we have now opened up the whole list of what can be supplied by government. And most of it is being read by the soil situation and the prescribed amendment, which is scientific. And this includes organic material because for the first time we also have a carbon map for the whole of Kenya. We know what is missing in each area. We know the problems and solutions are being offered by our research institutions through Carlo and the Soil Map Initiative under GIZ. And so, yes, we are covering a lot of the organic amendments that are required. I know there are many others that I've left out, but I can see the convener is looking at me.
Yes, thank you very much. I know there are many questions, there are many things to address, but that also shows that we are engaged, we are asking questions, we are interested in these issues. So this was just one opportunity, but I hope that these discussions will continue in other platforms and other avenues. So thank you very much, the panelists. As they leave the stage, please let's give them a very hearty, warm round of applause. And thank you very much to the organizers. So let me hand you back to Brian for the next session.
Thank you very much. Makofi tafadhali ukienda kukaa. Kofi. Siniliwasho kuna wase watawapatia all the information that you are probably looking for. And yes, I can see our time is really running. But yes, so sikuwa na worry. There's food and then you have extra time to really ask each of the people who are here. If you have like a really burning question, you can go check them out. So by show of hands, I want to see how many of you know Root to Food. How many of you are members of Root to Food? Hapa hakuna kudanganya, we have the record. Yes, so yes, that's quite a good number. So allow me to quickly introduce Christine Gatridi to just give us a little bit of an overview about Root to Food and some of the work they are doing before we go to the ultimate thing we want to do. Sijui kama mnaona there's something on this side yenye imefichwa kidogo. So we want to see what exactly is on that side. But in the meantime, in 5 minutes, I think she will be done. Karibu. Tafadhali makofi yakikuja.
Good afternoon. As you've heard, my name is Christine Kachweri. I'm the project coordinator at Root to Food Initiative. I got started in June, so I've not had a chance to meet many of you, especially the Alliance members, but I'm hoping to do it today, later in the afternoon. So we have a new website, and this is important because you heard in the morning that data and information are important in this fight. As Harun said, we are usually called noisemakers, but yes, we are noisemakers, but we show up with data and information. This is very important, especially for students. When you're doing your research papers, you need to have a source where you can look for data that you can cite, also for journalists when you're doing your stories, for social media people, for policymakers, and everyone who needs to understand how this space works. So I really wanted to go through the website very quickly. Sorry. As you can see, we have the homepage, and we've already uploaded the resource guide. Okay, sorry, let me share this screen to the audience in Zoom. I know you don't have it. So this is the question everyone was asking, where is the resource guide? It's already on the website. And if you scan the QR code on the banner there, it's going to lead you to this document. I don't want to take a lot of time to go through who we are. I'm sure you can look at that up later. What I really wanted to highlight is the publications. This is something that is we take very seriously, and we spend a lot of time and resources on. So if you go from the homepage, you go to the resource hub. This is where you'll find all the documents that I'm talking about, and they range from publications to blog articles, as well as to the magazine. So if you come to the publications, you can see there's a lot of work we have done over the years. So feel free to browse through and see which document speaks to you. There's something for everyone. For example, if you look at this scientific task force report, it's more technical. So if you're looking for more like data of specific HHPs, this is where you'll find it. If you're looking for more still data, statistics, a bit more information and qualitative information, you'd come here to the HHP. I'm talking about pesticides right now. And if you want still broken down further information, you come to the Farmers Resource Guide. It's actually based on the Toxic Business Report, but made in a more simpler language, so that we make sure that our documents are easily accessible to everyone. Besides the publications themselves, we have the magazines, and as I said, there's something for everyone. So if you're more into articles, you'd read any of these issues here. And if you're more artsy, more comic stuff, you can check out this graphic novel. It's called Blight Spot, and it's based on a futuristic setting. If you want like a more chronological order of everything, is still available. So you just click on Resource Hub and then go to Publications. And this is basically a list of all the work that you have done over the years based on date. So this is a very important resource for you if you're looking for data and information. Lastly, before I sit, I want to talk about the Root to Food Alliance. It's a group of organizations and individuals who are like-minded. They are also advocating for food rights and food system transformation. We are looking to do more work in the coming years, and we are hoping that you also join us. This is not work that can be done by a single person. We look at consumers. Consumers have a different role to play. Farmers have a different role to play. Policymakers, researchers as well. So all of these people, we want to bring you together in one movement and continue advocating for this food system transformation. So when you get a chance, please, even now, get your phone. I know you're all distracted and looking on the site. Please get your phone. Go to root2food.org. That's a website, and then click on this big red button, join the Alliance. There's the Alliance Pledge, which I take very seriously, because this is what tells you what we are about. So please read it and then sign up. That's it. Let me welcome Anne Maynard to lead us to the next session. Thank you. Read it and then sign up. That's it. Let me welcome Anne Maynard to lead us to the next session. Thank you.
I thought there were stairs on this side. Thank you very much. Please let us all stand up for a few minutes. We've been seated for a while. I want us to do some stretches before we go to the big agenda for today. Brian, where are you? Can you show us some stretches here? Hi, like this. Yes. Thank you very much. Let's sit down. Yes, it was too short, huh? Brian, that was too short. Thank you very much. So today we are here to launch this farmer's guide, and it is my pleasure to moderate. So it's my pleasure today to support the launch of the Farmer's Guide. And I'd like us to call a few farmers here. This is a Farmer's Guide, so the farmers are the ones who are going to launch it. We have Francesca Muni from Kirinyaga, Esther Kagai from Kajiado, the CEO of C-Shop, Paul Kinoti from Meru, Henrik Ruto from Kericho, Margaret Magiri Himana, and Edward Njaibu from Brumrit. Please come here. I can't see my farmers. And I will ask Brian to give us 6 copies of the guide for them to hold. 3 this side, 3 the other side. Francesca Muni, Esther Kagai, Paul Kinoti, Henrik Ruto, Margaret Magiri, and Edward Njaibu. We need more gender balance. The men are staying on one side, women on another side. Where's Esther? I had seen Esther. Oh, she's coming. Welcome, Esther. Please hold the guide. Make sure it's not upside down. Edward. Yeah, we want louder music.
Take me back to Africa.
Let us stand up, all of us.
It's been a very long time. I want to see my people.
So,
better go to Ghana and eat.
Where are the scissors?
Made from our African rice.
We need the scissors, Matthew, to cut the ribbon. Esther, come to the front. You hold it.
Take me to Africa. A land of majesty. We want to reach Abyssinia. There is no life without injera. Made from our African taste. Uganda. Highway. Katoga. With local brown.
Yes. Can we celebrate the cutting of the ribbon?
So nice.
Indigenous. Let us celebrate. Let us declare the women should you learn.
Let us go to Nigeria.
Indigenous.
And founded here.